of the Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board. He want a countdown here for Raleigh Television. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the March meeting of the PRGAB. And welcome to board members. It's good to see everybody here. We do have a number of people who had family commitments and other commitments that have made them not here tonight. But the mighty force group is here, and we will make decisions and go forth with lots and lots of information. The first item on our agenda is public comments. And do we have anyone who would like to make public comment? Okey-doke. Did I? If you want to make public comment, raise your hand or come to the podium. That's the way we do it here. Okey-doke. You do not have to sign up in advance at the Parks Board meeting to make public comment. The next thing is the Raleigh Youth Council, and I know I saw London and Paris back there, and if they will come up and give us their presentation.
So, hello, my name is London Evans. I'm chair of the Raleigh Youth Council.
And my name is Paris Evans, and I'm the vice chair of the Raleigh Youth Council.
So for our past community service event on Monday, March 4th to Friday, March 8th, we hosted daily themed reading challenges and allowed families to submit photos of them completing the challenges. Then on Saturday, March 9th, we had the Seussical celebration where we had book allows, Seuss-inspired snacks, crafts, and games for not only kids but teens as well. The purpose of this event was to promote reading in a fun way. We will also present this event at our spring convention for an award. And then for our past drive, we've noticed that while most organizations will focus on school supplies and book bag drives, there is a need for more teacher support since they purchase a lot of items from their own money, from their own pockets. So for the past 2 months, we've been collecting supplies for 2 teachers, and we will deliver those supplies this week.
That's wonderful. That's a very unique component.
So our last couple of meetings have been planning meetings to prepare for the upcoming spring convention. We've been working on a cool scrapbook idea and a way to present for the Innovative Council Project Award. Next month, we will attend the 2024 SYC Spring Convention. It will be hosted in Lake Norman, NC by the Lake Norman Youth Council. As of now, we are taking about 10 members. This conference is an opportunity to elect the new State Youth Council Board and award the councils for their hard work during the 2023-2024 year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from board members? Well, we appreciate, and I'm thrilled that you're taking 10 people with you. That will be a real fun adventure. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is an overview of athletic services. Mr. Hisler and Mr. Ryba.
All right, well, good. Feels like afternoon with the sun still being out, so I'll go with good evening. Those girls are very tall. Even I got to bring this thing down. So it's great to be back with you this evening. So we will continue our What We Do series. Tonight you're going to hear about athletics, and the fun part, we're right in that season, and I might give a go pack. Oh, I just gave a go pack because we're in tournament season. But Ryan Ryba is our athletics program director, and he's going to talk to you about all the things you think you know about athletics and some of the things that you don't. It's a pretty multifaceted group that serves both youth and adults. So instead of me stealing probably half of his slides, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Ryba, our athletic program director, to talk to you about what we do in athletics.
Good evening. All right, so like Ken said, my name is Ryan Ryba. I'm the athletic program director for our athletic program area. A little bit more about the members of our team. We have a full-time team of 4. Jason Clemens, Zeb Alford, and Mike Brito are our recreation program managers for athletics. We do have 1 vacancy that we're looking to fill in the coming months, so when we're at full strength, we're a full team of 5. The majority of us do have our CPRP and CYSA, and that may not mean a whole lot for everybody, but the CPRP means that the three of us that have it currently are certified Parks and Rec professionals, and CYSA is specific to us for athletics. We are all certified youth sports administrators. The National Rec and Parks Association and the National Alliance for Youth Sports are our governing bodies, and it basically means that us as individuals have hit baselines in how we program. We make sure that we're meeting national standards and trends, basically good standards and practices across the board. Along with that, the National Alliance for Youth Sports also accredits organizations. Very proud to say that for the last 5+ years, City of Raleigh has been a better sports for kids program provider, which means as an organization, not just individuals, we're making sure that we're hitting, again, national standards and baselines and best practices for how we program for the kids. And then just recently, our division won the Excellence in Youth Sports Award. So nationally, we were one of 5. We actually went up to Baltimore and our team got recognized on stage for our initiatives in positive sportsmanship. So over the last couple of years, we've really made an initiative to solicit positive feedback from our youth participants and players. It means a lot, especially ours is trying to get people to nominate and recognize good sportsmanship on opposing teams, which I know is a little bit hard to do at times, but it's something that we're proud to say that we're moving in the right direction for, and I was really proud of our team to have gotten recognized for that. So I'm going to break down our division into kind of 3 main categories: leagues and programs, special events, and rentals. Starting with leagues and programs, we divide our year into spring, summer, winter, and fall. Amongst those 4 seasons, the leagues that we offer are baseball, softball, flag, and basketball. Those are kind of our core 4. We do, at times, from hearing from the public, offer or attempt to offer additional leagues and programs. These are the ones that have been pretty consistent for us year over year. For adults, baseball, softball, and basketball have been pretty consistent for us. A lot of what you're going to see in this presentation is a 12-month snapshot of data for our division. What you're looking at here is just the numbers of participants we've had in the last 4 seasons, using spring of 2024 as our most recent. I'm proud to say that we grew 15% from last spring, and right now we have just over 1,600 kids registered in baseball, softball, and youth flag football. You might recognize that summer looks like we don't have any youth participation. We do have a baseball league that we don't want to compete with the high school league. It's a 15 to 17 league. We do register in the spring, so those numbers are captured in the spring. They do play over the fall. Obviously, summer camp is very heavy for our recreation department over the summer, and we've just seen that it's hard to get people to commit to meeting multiple times a week in those summer months as people travel, everybody's out of school. But we do have a healthy adult basketball league, which is why you see that bar is all red. So just a little bit of a breakdown of how our participation numbers look throughout the year. With that, our average rate of registration is $50, which is below market rate for the surrounding area, which is really nice because I know eliminating barriers to participation is our goal to make sure everybody has a way to play. We do bring in about $187,000 in youth registration fees. Similarly, we have about 131 adult teams every year amongst our sports. Average team fee is about $450, which is also below market rate, which brings in just under $60,000 in registration fees. How we've been marketing, we do chloroplast signs in front of our community centers. We use email listservs from past participants. We just, with the help of our marketing division, started incentivizing through coupons at some of our local events. Social media campaigns, email reminders, obviously, and Dick's was nice enough this past spring to allow our teams to be present as people were walking in, to try to grab people that were hopefully at Dick's Sporting Goods that are athletically minded, to hopefully let them know that we have some really cool program offerings to get them to register. Included in that registration fee is pretty much all inclusive. So we give them a full jersey, all the equipment is provided. We want to make sure that nobody goes without. So it's not just a registration fee and then you got to spend extra money to continue to participate. It's a one-time fee that covers everything that you'll need. Our volunteer coaches are our backbone of our programs. We heavily rely on our volunteer coaches, and I'm proud to say we have very, very good coaches. NAYS, which we got our CYSAs from, do provide coaches training that we require of our head coaches that the city covers the cost for. It's about an hour and a half. Again, it just sets a baseline to make sure everybody's starting from the same point as a coach. We do background check all of our coaches, so anybody that's going to be interacting with a child that's not their own is required to be background checked. And then working with volunteer services, our snapshot over the last 12 months is we've had just under 800 coaches for an estimated 22,000 hours of service, which is phenomenal. And then given the cost of their volunteering, an estimated value of about $680,000 a year that we get from them in the service they provide if we were to try to transition into trying to pay those coaches. So they do quite a bit for us, and it's a great segue because one of the ways we like to recognize our coaches, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with, is the Fred Fletcher Awards. So athletics has is really fond of Fred Fletcher. We have two that kind of stand out to us in athletics. Obviously, we have the Outstanding Athletic Volunteer Award, and then specifically for youth basketball, we have the Harvey Carcevar Award. So we're proud to hand out and at least recognize two of those coaches every year with the help of you guys. We also try to support other programs inside of our division. So each summer, because we don't have youth leagues going, we do support our camps by sending athletic specialists to all of our campsites. We do our best to try to tie it to one of the youth leagues that we have registration coming up. So most recently, we did youth flag football for all of the camp kids, and then left a bunch of materials for anybody that was interested. If they had a great day at camp with our specialists, they got to take something home to mom and dad to hopefully register a month later in July when registration opens. Some of the other special events and programs we do is we have been a Major League Baseball pitch hit and run site for the last 10 plus years. We have stayed as a local host, but the picture you see there is somebody that has played in our program for years. They won our local event, went to sectionals, won sectionals, and then got invited. He's in front of the Atlanta Braves Stadium in Atlanta. Actually went and won there. He just missed being invited to the All-Star game. So if you guys ever see the kids in the outfield during the Home Run Derby, that's how they pull those kids, is from the MLB pitch hit and run event. So we had somebody make it pretty far. We're really proud of him. And then going kind of tying back to our marketing, but also events, is we've started doing local signing day events. So it's a great way for us to kick off registration, showcase things that are going on at our community centers. In the winter, we held an event at Lions Park for youth basketball. In the spring, most recently, we were at Biltmore Hills to kick off baseball and flag football. The picture you see there, we had a guest, Nate McMillan, with us in October to kick off our winter basketball. If you're not familiar with Nate, Nate grew up playing in our programs. The Lions Park Gym is dedicated to him. He had a phenomenal NBA career as a player and a coach, and is now an advocate for us in trying to get next generation to continue to play with us. Moving on, or still with special events, Walnut Creek is our flagship event complex. You see an overview. Having 9 fields in one facility is pretty unique. It makes us one of the larger premier destinations for large events on the East Coast. So we have 9 full-size softball fields. We host 30 events annually. So 2023, we are scheduled for 33. Mother Nature had her way with a couple of them. Obviously, rain kind of dampens the playing for us, but we're scheduled to host another 33 in 2024. So far, we're 2 for 3. We've gotten rained out once already, but we're excited for some good weather. Estimated revenue from gate and rental fees for those 33 events were about $222,000 for the 2023 year. Walnut Creek hosts youth tournaments, adult tournaments. We host college showcases, which is really fun for us because if you stay long enough, you're guaranteed to see somebody get a college offer on site, which is really a cool experience to see for the players and the coaches. And then most recently, we've been trying to be creative with some non-traditional uses. Walnut Creek has such a large geographic footprint that we were able to fit a 5K on site. So what you see there is our first 5K. They held it Super Bowl Sunday just a month ago. They had about 200 racers. The weather wasn't fantastic, but that race in particular had quite a following. And we're really excited to find ways to activate that space without putting more wear on our fields without overburdening our park staff, obviously, because they're already working 33 out of those 52 weekends. We do work with GRSA. Those larger tournaments have quite an economic impact. When you're talking about bringing in 60 to 70 teams, a lot of those being outside the Raleigh area, GRSA, so the Greater Raleigh Sports Alliance, tracked 6 of those 33 tournaments last year in 2023 and had an estimated economic impact of about $2.4 million. So if you imagine expanding those 6 to all 33, I think we're comfortably in the 8 figures in the amount of airfare, hotel stays, restaurants, other attractions that they may use while they're here. So we're really excited to not only activate our facility, but to bring people into the greater Raleigh area to see how neat of a city Raleigh is. On to rentals. We do have a field inventory of about 40 ball fields and 20 multi-purpose fields. We have 3 rental cycles that we split up into spring, summer, and fall. We activate our fields from February to December. We try to let them rest mid-December to about mid-February for 2 months just to make sure that they're nice when everybody starts trying to play again. We actually rent to a lot of public schools. So Wake County Public Schools we have some joint use agreements with them for a lot of our spaces. So we're happy to support the schools. We have a lot of private schools that don't have their own facilities that use ours to get through their athletic leagues. We also help Shaw, St. Aug, William Peace, NC State, Meredith with a lot of field space for their teams. We have a couple semi-pro teams that have moved in that we now host, which we're really excited about. And then, of course, the general public. So we rent to birthday parties, to dad and son just wanting to go play catch, a wide variety of people, and we're really excited to make sure that we have a home for everybody. We do have a lottery process in how we allocate field space. We actually had our summer lottery 2 days ago, and it went really well. I don't want to read all of them, but we prioritize our internal programs. We work with our partners, our public schools, and then whether or not you're youth or adult, for-profit or nonprofit, we put all the groups in tiers, and then in that lottery process, we randomly draw out everybody from each tier to decide how we process those requests. It's what we have found to be the fairest way to make sure that we don't have one group monopolizing all the space. Again, 12-month snapshot. So 2023, we had about 316 different rental groups for a total of 6,200 unique rentals, 18,000 hours of space that we allocated to those groups, and about 560,000 in estimated rental fees collected when you include the field prep that we provide to those private schools that are using our baseball fields. The lights are, everything that we can do to make sure people have somewhere to go. And so that is what I have to share with you guys today. I know that was an info dump, but are there any questions I can help answer?
Questions from members of the board?
Yeah. Thank you for that presentation. I had a couple of questions about how far are you from available capacity? These are great numbers for usage, but are we bumping up to not being able to support more athletics, or are we comfortable room to grow?
Great question. We do have comfortable room to grow. So we have gotten really creative in using our spaces. Obviously, the demand in certain parts of Raleigh is higher than others. I'm excited to know that we have some really nice CIP projects coming up that are going to allow us to grow in those areas that we might right now feel a little locked. But I'm excited. If I can get 16% like we did this year, every year, we could do that for quite a while before we're concerned about hitting capacity.
Perfect. And then on the coaches side, so when I was a kid, I had the same coach for my soccer team 4 years in a row. I thought he really loved it. I found out later that he just was the only one that was there. So how are you doing with recruiting volunteer coaches?
Yeah, we're fortunate that we have some really active and involved parents. I'd say that 95% of the coaches we get are telling us that they want to coach. It's one of the questions we ask when they register their children. So we try to capture that information on the front end. I think there's always a little bit of hesitancy for some, but letting them know that we provide everything. We have practice resources for people that may not necessarily be familiar with the sport their kid's playing. So we do our best. We, as full-time staff and part-time staff, will go out, help a new coach get through their first couple practices if need be, help recruit assistant coaches so they don't feel like they're on an island. I'd love to say that we're busting at the seams every season, but there's always a few vacancies where we're having those conversations with people who didn't say yes right away, but after we have those conversations, feel a lot more comfortable stepping into that role.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions from board members? I have one or two, and I mean, your coaches, as you identified, are really a key part. My children benefited. And I know that several years ago, and Ken will anticipate this question that I have, that the whole county was focusing on trauma-informed care, and and Raleigh's parks were leading the way in many ways with training staff on trauma-informed care. And are you all doing anything in that regard with your volunteer coaches? I mean, it's a hard mountain to climb, but so I don't expect, that you're going to get 100%, but is that something that you've provided, opportunities to learn more about?
So we do cover medical emergencies in the coaches meeting that we have preseason. We do have a concussion training and protocol that we go through, and the NAES training that we require of our head coaches does have a component to it to make sure that we at least have given everybody enough information to be dangerous should they come across a situation like that.
Okay. And the other question was, I know that in the past the city has offered lacrosse, and I didn't see that on your list. Has that just, there's so many different private groups that are now pulling that off and making money from it?
So we had a healthy lacrosse program, and then we hit the pandemic. And we were very cautious and cognizant of our activities that had a lot of physical interaction. And so at the time, we didn't feel comfortable in bringing lacrosse back, knowing how close in proximity those players were to each other, because we still felt like we weren't out of the pandemic quite yet. And I think when we didn't immediately return to offer the program, our participants found the private groups that did stay open. We have tried a couple years. We tried in 2023 and 2022 when the pandemic ended, and we felt comfortable offering it again. Unfortunately, just haven't seen those numbers come back yet. But like I said, we kind of have those core sports, but similar to adult kickball, youth lacrosse, there's some things that we know maybe if we give it a year or two break and then try it again with full steam, with new energy. Obviously, as kids are aging into that program, we're hopeful that it'll come back. So it's gone, but not forgotten.
Great answer. Anything else? One thing that I have mentioned to Stephen Bentley, and I'll say it again because you gave such a concrete presentation that I think a lot of other people in the community would benefit from. I'm hoping that we'll be able to either capture the video or have a link on the website where people could click on and see your PowerPoint or hear your discussion, and so that more people in our community can appreciate and understand the extent of the offerings and the impact that it has both financially and for adults and children keeping active. And I think that so kudos for that. And I just want to reemphasize the opportunity to touch more people with that
Thank you. Yeah,
information.
that would be fantastic.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time this evening. Did you have something you wanted to say?
I forgot about that. It is excellent. You're right. I mean, because even me sitting here and been in the department, I just learned from Ryan's PowerPoint myself. So.
Yeah, well, I think we as a board have been so educated with these what we do presentations that I think that if there's a way to capture them and put them out there, that more people can learn. So thank you for reminding. All right, next we have Mr. Gary Claiborne giving us a presentation on the Smoky Hollow schematic design. And board members, as you listen to this, we will be voting on this at the end to make a recommendation that it proceed to the next level.
Okay. Good evening, you all. I'm Gary Claiborne. I'm Capital Project Supervisor with Raleigh Parks. Just to note, this park project, Smoky Hollow Park project, is a collaboration between Raleigh Parks and Raleigh Stormwater. As such, Megan Walsh from Raleigh Stormwater is here this evening as well. Tonight, we will present the schematic design for the park, and we'll be recommending your approval and to send this project to City Council for final approval of the schematic design next month. As mentioned, Stormwater will be taking the lead of this project following the schematic design process, and they'll be guiding the project through advanced design, permitting, and then on to construction. I'm also joined this evening by members from the design consultant team, composed of Tetra Tech, Design Workshop, and Ecosystem Planning and Restoration. Emily McCoy of Design Workshop will be presenting the schematic design here in a few slides. So project overview. The guiding document for the schematic design is the 2022 City Council approved concept plan. Per the concept plan, the principles for park design and programming of the park are site remediation, which includes removal of the existing buildings and pavement and addressing contaminated groundwater and soil, daylighting and restoration of the Pigeon House Branch, which also includes relocating a portion of the stream into a more natural environment, development of a natural and passive park, and the first phase of the Pigeon House Branch Greenway. As far as funding goes, funding comes from several sources. We have the 2014 and 22 Parks Bond, which combined equal $13.5 million. We also have an additional funding coming from Stormwater at $5.5 million, which gives us a total city funding of $19 million. We also have a North Carolina Land and Water Fund grant that's currently out there right now that will give some additional funding and buffer room if awarded later this year. Project timeline. The project officially started in 2017. Major design phases include the concept design and public engagement phase from 2021 to 2022. The schematic design started after the approval of the concept plan and passage of the 2022 Parks Bonds. If the schematic design is approved, we'll then move forward to advanced design and permitting later this year, followed by site remediation and construction plan for 2025 through 2027. Something got out of order here, unfortunately. Public engagement for this project. We engaged with the public multiple times during both the concept design phase and schematic design phase. During the schematic design, we had stakeholder committee representing local neighborhoods, businesses, and other local interests. We also had a series of virtual and live meetings through 2021 and 2022, as well as public input surveys. And then during schematic design, we actually had 2 open houses, one this past December and one this past March. We also had a survey open during the schematic design process from December into January. And with that, I will pass along the presentation to Emily McCoy of Design Workshop. I'm going to have to go backwards, I think, a few slides. There we go.
Thank you.
Emily.
Back to the future. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily McCoy. I'm a landscape architect and principal at Design Workshop. And I'm going to walk you through how we arrived at the schematic design and then pass it back off to Gary to close this out. This is the project site. It is about 13.7 acres with Peace Street on the bottom of the page, Smoky Hollow Development as well, Capitol Boulevard. We are looking north towards North Hills. The project site is almost entirely in the 100-year floodplain and contains an old maintenance facility, a working office right now for the city, and as you can see, almost 100% impervious surfaces. On the left side, on the west side of the property is Pigeon House Branch, which goes through a stone channel. There's same stone channel that you will see at the Village District, same watershed at the top of the watershed, and the same stone that you see there today. You can see on the right-hand side, the DOT does still have a sliver of where the old exit ramp came off Capitol Boulevard on the right-hand side of the stream. There are steep slopes on either side of the property as you look to the north, and there's significant sort of stream drop within that channelized stream. There's an existing oak alley that still remains, and a historic stone wall, which used to be the wall of the bottom of the minor league baseball stadium that used to be there. Back in 2001, 2002, we went through the concept design phase. We offered to the community 3 different approaches to the project site, which really were defined by the approach and investment in stream restoration. The stream really was the guiding force on these 3 concepts. And what we heard from the community is there was a strong preference for the meanders, concept 3, which really put the stream at the center stage of the park design for a passive park experience. So we heard a lot from the community that people are yearning for an oasis in the city, and that a lot of folks that live in Glenwood South area don't have that natural space, that open park space to go to, and that this would serve that need. And so this concept plan included very passive park elements, stream restoration, wetlands, native planting, but really also more excitingly, in addition, is that it would become this great new gateway from the north to downtown Raleigh. And like I said, a lot of interest in this quiet, passive experience from the community. We took that concept and added another layer of detail in developing the design for all of the spaces. The main spaces here are articulated with these callouts. So on Peace Street, on the left side of your screen, we have a plaza that is that main gateway into the park, into the Greenway, which is the spine of the park, and offers a series of loops of paths within this north-south access park. There's a history walk. There's a West Street Plaza as well. That's a little smaller scale plaza for smaller gathering that is a launching point for that historic interpretation that's layered into the site. And then we have a series of pedestrian connections to Capitol Boulevard, to Dorch Street, to West Street, and to Peace Street. All of the planting is native. We have a constructed wetland system that I'll talk about here in a bit, and ways to interact with the natural elements, whether it's immersing yourself in the wetland elements themselves or having perspective and view with a series of overlooks as you move through the site. These are the program areas that we've defined, so you can see that greenway, that main greenway, that would be the first phase of a larger greenway network that hopefully gets built over time, that would connect to Crabtree to the north. And then a series of secondary trails that provide loops so that you could walk your dog or experience the different natural elements throughout the site. There are a series of berms on the Capitol Boulevard side of the site, which is balancing the cut and fill of the stream restoration, but also mitigating the sound from Capitol Boulevard and the view to Capitol Boulevard. We also have a constructed wetland system that helps slow down and clean water before it makes its way to Pigeon House Branch. And as I mentioned earlier, a West Street Plaza and a Peace Street Plaza with the Greenway Trail in between. And these are just some character images of how we imagine those spaces looking. Really, the gem of this project is the restoration of Pigeon House Branch, slowing down water, cleaning water. That includes daylighting a very large stormwater pipe that's coming from the other side of Capitol Boulevard to the right of your screen here that goes through a series of constructed wetland systems to clean and slow down the water before it makes its way to the now meandering Pigeon House Branch. There is a very large investment in the stream restoration itself and providing habitat and providing that ecological uplift. that we'd like to see in a space that went from a parking lot to hopefully this beautiful naturalized stream environment. These are just some character images, perspective drawings of ways that we imagine people interacting with the different elements of the park. We hope that they're very immersive experiences, and so we have provided a series of boardwalk and overlook systems that really get you down into those natural elements and provide an interpretive experience too, not just for the history, but also the value and the ecosystem services that our parks can provide. This is just a further explanation of all the native plant systems that we have layered onto the site and all the habitat that we could imagine, hopefully, making their way to the park. I realize some of these might be a little farther out, but if we build it, we hope that they will come. Here's the Peace Street Plaza. We do anticipate this being the more heavily pedestrian trafficked entrance to the park space that provides a lot of flexibility for different events, food trucks, vendors, or just gathering spaces for recreational groups, for example. The West Street Plaza is a little lower key. It connects the historic history walk to the greater series of the path network and really is connected to this wonderful overlook that connects to West Street, where you can look down on the stream, look at the skyline from that area, and really sort of take in the perspective of the park, but also serves that smaller gathering space. Last but not least, we do have interpretive elements throughout the park. The park and the site and the neighborhood of Smoky Hollow have a very rich history, not just the baseball stadium that it was in the 1940s, but before that, it was an informal gathering place for churches and community members before the Civil War, and then the Smoky Hollow neighborhood, and then other elements, even going back to prehistory with Native American use of the site. And we want to tell those stories, those very complex stories throughout the site, and have these interpretive elements really focused on the history walk being that place where they're concentrated, but also other moments in the landscape where we're able to interpret the site history, and then also the services, the ecosystem services that this park is providing, particularly from a stormwater perspective. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Gary.
Thank you, Emily. Just so you all know, many of the images that you all just saw came directly from the boards that were presented at the open house from a few weeks ago. So the public has already had an opportunity to see this. It's also been available on the public on our project website as well. So, so the next steps, we will be, if voted upon tonight, our next step is to bring the schematic design to City Council April 16th. This spring and summer, we recently successfully bid a project for removal of underground storage tanks in the center part of the site. So that's kind of like the first phase of remediation that we'll really see physically happening on the site. And that contract is going to be routed fairly soon. So also this summer and into the fall, we'll be doing the Phase 3 remedial investigations, which is on-site work where they're actually going out there and drilling, doing soil samples, putting in monitoring wells. This should be the last phase of that type of remedial investigation work, and then that will lead to a remedial action plan that will become part of the overall construction of the site. Also at the end of schematic design will be the project transfer over to the Stormwater Division, advanced design and permitting 2024 to 2025, and then construction 25 to 27. So the recommendation for tonight is to approve the schematic design as presented with the following priorities. Number 1, environmental remediation. Number 2, stream restoration and stormwater quality improvements. Number 3, greenway, trail connectivity, and cultural interpretation. Number 4, development of plazas. And number 5 is other hardscape amenities. So thank you all very much, and we are open to any questions that you all may have. Yes.
Yes, I've been following this. It's exciting. But I just had a flash with one of the slides you showed and made me wonder, what kind of plan do you have for night lighting?
So we do have plans within the plaza area for lighting, particularly at the Peace Street Plaza, as well as believe there's accommodation for Greenway lighting as well.
So, yeah, I'd be curious. I know that one of the things we're talking about in the SWAT committee is night lighting that does not harm wildlife, that's sensitive or respectful of the other beings that inhabit our city, fly and slither
And
and
I
whatever.
agree that that is a very good point, so that will probably be part of the strategic plant lighting design.
Well, it just seems
to-
like it's a place that could be really hot, bright lights at night, given the buildings around.
Well, yes, and the overspill from Capitol Boulevard as well. So there is undeniably, you will have impact just from the urban spillover of light.
Until we can do better.
So there will be, when the lighting plan does come into effect, the lighting designers, they do look at how, ambient lighting coming from other sources also kind of feeds into it, with the idea of, where's that happy medium to provide the nighttime safety use along with, also the idea of protecting wildlife and being sure that everybody gets their proper natural cycles in alignment.
Thank you, Gary.
Other questions from board members?
Sorry. So this might be a long comment / question. I like a lot of this park, but one thing that really caught my attention with the design was the minimization of the skate park. And in fact, this is the first graphic in this presentation that it showed up in. I was not a skateboarder, but I had a lot of friends that were, and my nephew started skateboarding when he was young. And I know skateboarders get a bad rap, but it's mostly harmless children, and it's a really good physical activity. Even just driving in today, there was 15 kids, mostly teenagers, mostly boys, on the skate park, and it's a place for their, a place of their own. I did some research on this last night to see if skate parks and stormwater management are incompatible, and it is actually a movement in skate park design is to make them part of stormwater management. Like Portland and Detroit have very, I would call them beautiful skate parks with stormwater management built in, and I would really like to see if we can maintain a skate park of, if Marsh Creek was sufficient for the city, then they wouldn't have gone through the effort of what it took to build that skate park for just a few years. So I think that its existence identified a gap in parks and what the city wants. So if we could try to maintain a skate park of size sufficient to, a bunch of kids, like the size that you have or that is on this graphic would be suitable for 1 or 2 people to skate at a time. It would probably go unused. So something like what Chapel Hill or Durham or Marsh Creek has, 10,000 square feet, is a pretty appropriate community skate park size. You could build it on the berm. You wouldn't have to change any of the topology of the park. It might be something that it's not here, but I think we would be doing a disservice to the teenagers and the kids of downtown Raleigh if we excluded that now that they've experienced it. And so there is not really a question in there, I'm sorry. But it was just something that I couldn't come to terms with.
Yes.
All right, other questions and comments?
Thank you for the presentation, and nice to see familiar faces here as well. And one question about the stormwater management. So what do you see the expected improvement or the goal for the stormwater management? Will the site absorb most of the runoff from surrounding areas?
That is a very big question. So yes, there are provisions in place for not only the stream restoration to handle additional flow. We also have a constructed wetland feature in there too that's actually capturing water that's coming from the east side of Capitol Boulevard. There's an existing stormwater pipe that runs under Capitol Boulevard, goes directly into the stream right now. So with that stormwater wetland in place, it's almost like an interceptor for that first flush of water. It is not because, again, getting back to the fact that there is contamination upon the site, and we are going to be doing remediation. There's also the idea we don't necessarily want the water to infiltrate, so it is a lined stormwater feature. So it's really meant to not necessarily the stormwater, the wetland feature itself, not actually meant to take up the water, but hold the water in place, improve the water quality, kind of like let it more slowly release into the stream. But overall, too, we're removing a lot of pavement out there. I mean, that entire site is almost completely covered in pavement, and we are greatly improving that and making most of the site, a landscape area that will take up the natural stormwater as well. It is designed to flood. We're not decreasing necessarily or radically increasing the amount of existing floodplain out there. We're really working with the existing flood plain, so it's really meant to handle that. But whereas now when the site floods, it's on pavement, so it's going to go down the creek right now. With the park, it's going to act a little bit more like a sponge. So is there anything else you all like to add?
Good, thank you. And I also want to give a kudo to the team because this project really focuses on the restoration of the natural system. So I would say this is a new economic destination on north of the downtown area. So very excited. Good job.
Hi, Carol. Thanks for the presentation tonight. I don't want to be negative or thinking ahead in a negative way because I'm really excited about this, and especially the stream piece and having that as like a focal point and the remediation. But I'm just concerned that with all these people going to the park, we might have some trash end up in the stream, plastic, snack things, whatever. Is there a way to kind of capture those things to keep it from going further downstream, or how are we going to address maybe some of the human elements of using a park?
I'm going to potentially look to a few other people to see if they could help with that.
Hello, Megan Walsh with Stormwater. One of the things that we are looking into is working with the stormwater maintenance side and existing pipe infrastructure assessment reports to determine the the condition of the sites, and also to see if there's any trash within that system, and just asking around to resources that are available. There's certainly those devices out there. A big component of that is maintenance and also blocking the flow. So we want to be able to balance maintenance and the function of those stormwater components. But Jonathan, anything to add?
Sure, I'll just add, Jonathan Smith with Tetra Tech. I'll just add very briefly that the stream corridor is vegetated, and that will act as somewhat of a deterrent. It'll create that nice natural space, but it'll also prevent people from being that really close to the stream so that debris and trash can get into them. Also, the stormwater wetland incorporates a forebay, which is a device at the upstream end of that system to capture debris and trash. And so we've had discussions with Stormwater and Parks Maintenance about their needs for getting to that location and removing debris and collected sediments so that we can maintain the function of the site and the overall aesthetic quality of the park.
I would add that we're actually partnering with Stormwater to create a GSI maintenance crew within parks, and their sole job would be
GSI being green stormwater
infrastructure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So we would have staff as their full-time job to maintain assets like this in the park system. And it would be funded by the Stormwater Department at Parks. So.
Very good. Other questions, Mr. Johnson?
Excuse me. There'll be a lot of people in motion in that area. Tell us how you've anticipated the possible friction of cyclists and not necessarily skateboards. I believe are the world's most perfect form of transportation. So I'm on this member side, but there's going to be a lot of different kinds of motion. How have you anticipated that?
Well, the main pathway is intended to be a greenway pathway and intended to be the first phase of a bigger greenway system that will connect downtown to Crabtree Creek. So it is being designed to meet the current greenway standards for width, and if there's any, any other provisions necessary within the Greenway standards, they'll be met as well. So,
Well, there's one thing that's not actually within the Greenway standards, at least as I've been able to find, and that's for a recovery area for cyclists and people on wheels so they can escape hurdles that sometimes appear suddenly. Is there time to, think about that a little bit and see how that could be addressed to the extent the current state of design would allow, or is it past anything that you could do?
oh no, we're not. We're still in the schematic design phase. I mean, there's still a lot of design to go. Just so everyone understands what schematic design means, it's essentially 30% level of 100% design. So we still have 70% more design to go. So and features like that, if it's something that we'll certainly talk to our Greenway staff because they're the ones who are more the experts, on that level of, thought, and we'll talk to them about that.
Yeah, see if
but
they
there's
can find-
opportunity if we if we would like to potentially examine that. We would want to provide potentially some wayside areas, I think, along there that's not shown on the plan now that could be seating opportunities as well. So,
Well, and that is another part of the problem. To have a recovery area along the travel portions that's free of obstructions and where you have a plaza and benches and other things that you're adding obstructions to, if they can find or generate some basic standard or models for addressing that. The obstructions come in two forms, not just not enough space, but sometimes the things that are introduced. My pet peeve and we are very good about it in our greenways, are those benches where the person resting on the bench has to put their feet in the travel portion of the greenway trail.
I completely understand that, and I have personal feelings about that too.
They're really good models here, though. You'll find them all over the place.
Right. So, I've always been taught myself when looking at design, when you design benchways, and you got to think about the legs and don't stick them out into the travel ways. So,
Thanks.
I have several other questions on this. I didn't see any restrooms. And given that there's not much public facility there, I wondered if we were considering restrooms down by the Peace Street Plaza.
to this point, we have not. We've, in fact, it has been discussed before, and the thought process is to not necessarily have restrooms here because it's not as activated of a space as our other facilities are, such as recreational facilities and such. Peace Street Plaza is designed to be a potential small event, temporary small event space, like a Saturday morning type event. There's provisions there for food trucks and such as that. So during events like that, there could be the opportunity to put in, the temporary restroom facilities for when you would anticipate more than your typical
I would
daily
say
crowds.
that restroom usage is more universal than skate park need. And so I would say it's a pretty compelling need, because if we're going to, especially because it's going to bring people as part of the Greenway, not just people who live in the buildings. And there's no place, there's the Publix grocery store, and but other than that, there's not public restrooms in the area. So that's something. Can you describe, I was going down West Street the other day, and on the other side of West Street, on the west side of West Street, I saw City of Raleigh vehicles parked. Can you tell us a little bit about that property and its usage, and if any chance to connect the park there?
So the area you're talking about is about right there.
Go to the
That-
project site, the first one that, I think that aerial will show it. Still.
Can do that, can I? Okay, so it's this area right here. It is a City of Raleigh facility that is primarily used by some of our engineering services staff as well as the police. I believe still corral their horses there as well. So you also see here, there's this dash line here. We didn't speak to this at
Yeah,
all.
I was going to ask about, that's on my list too.
So
High-speed
that
line.
is the current known alignment of a future high-speed rail line that connects up to Richmond. And it will be going across, again, as NCDOT has right now, that going across the northern part of the site. It will be heavily impacting that particular City of Raleigh site pretty significantly, because that's going to be an overpass structure going over Capitol, going over the park, going over West Street, and then once it gets onto the other side, it's going to start to, more than likely, at least based upon our understanding and conversations with DOT and their plans, it's going to start to go into the existing earthen embankment where the existing railroad alignment is. So, and that's going to kind of carry over into that area.
Pretty
So more than
sharp
likely,
turn.
there's going to be, it won't be as much of a facility as it is now in the future. So.
Okay. All right. Well, that it is an interesting. The other thing I see, and this is a great picture to show it, is the angle at the bottom where you indicated that there was NCDOT right of way that they still hold. What is the opportunity for the City of Raleigh to acquire that right of way and use that and expand the park?
That would be a question to.
Yeah, so we have discussed it, and if we do acquire it, would be more like a naturalization. We would plant it and pretty much keep it, because the embankments are holding up the bridge right there.
Right.
But we have talked about, a lot of times they'll come to us and say, do you want this? Because they don't really have an interest. If we do, it would be another natural barrier to kind of keep the park.
Could build the bathrooms right into the
Yes. Possibly.
embankment.
There is a grade change there too,
Yeah.
coming up from the park up into that old off ramp. So, but certainly, right now it's mostly maintained grass and a few trees that are starting to kind of grow up too much. So, the idea of potentially adding additional vegetation would certainly be a plus there.
Yeah.
To buffer the plaza from Capitol.
And I have to take a stand in direct opposition to my colleague on the board that actually the skate park never came before this board, which is probably contrary to our mission statement, but that's history of years ago, so we won't go there. But it's never had public review, I guess is the comment that I would make there. And while I definitely think that we need an additional skate park, I was at a BMX park on Saturday over in Carborough because Raleigh doesn't have one. But I don't think this park is the right location. It's just the question of the right location for it, rather. And it was as an abandoned, completely concrete, impervious surface. It was a perfect temporary location. But for the change and the public response on a pastoral wetland pigeon house branch coming back alive, I am very concerned about the priorities that you've set forth for us on there. I saw it was the last one, and I hope, and I would even entertain a motion that we urge our staff to identify alternative locations for a skate park in the City of Raleigh plan. But this particular park is not, it's incongruent use in my personal opinion. I'm no expert, but in reading through the comments, that seemed to be the general perspective that was shared. So others can make comments. I'm not the final word on that, but
I do believe that most of the 30 or 40 comments were positive about the skate park. I didn't see any negative in that.
well, there were hundreds of comments, And no, nothing, and I'm not negative to a skate park. I'm just concerned about an incongruent use in this particular park, and that we need to identify a park where it is more appropriately integrated into this
I can help
space.
contextually. So since the Skate Raleigh partnership, we've been working with them on, we have a number of parks in which they're in the master plan. We were also looking at where are other options. And what Gary's presented is kind of that reasonable compromise. The best practice in the United States is to put skate parks underneath railways. So if you see where it's at. The other, we were highly intentional on the recommendation to the board. One, council has given us priorities. You will remediate, you will do the stream, you will do the greenway. And that's why we laid it out to you to say, if we have any money, we may be able to do the skate park. If not, it's an unfunded piece. The other thing that Gary's told me is that generally the state train folks, I forget what agency has said, don't put anything there right now. We're okay with like a greenway path. So it might be, we might have money and might not decide to do it because it doesn't make sense. So that's why we have the 1 through 5 to the board, that there's so many factors that make it that this might not happen for a long time. So.
Stephen, to Beverly's point, if it doesn't make sense for this site, does it make sense for another site?
I'm not, well, Beverly's saying it doesn't make sense for this site. I don't know if that's the
My
board.
opinion.
That's right.
Sorry,
that
I
is a
just
matter
meant when
of
she said if we
discussion.
could identify other opportunities around Raleigh in the park system for this.
We have adopted master plans with skate parks in them. They're just unfunded. Chavis has skate elements into it, and they are unfunded. Abbott's Creek does, Barwell Road does. So there are a number of sites, and that was based off of community input. So.
Okay, but they're just unfunded.
That's correct. Yep.
I have one question. Hi. The railroad that you're talking about would be the CSX or the Norfolk Southern?
Amtrak.
Amtrak.
Yes, this is a high-speed passenger rail service.
That was recently granted 40 million or billion.
$1 billion.
Billion,
Yes.
some big number.
It's currently in design right now.
And this high-speed rail would go through, would it be parallel to Capitol Boulevard?
So we'll run parallel roughly to north of the site. It will run parallel to Capitol Boulevard.
Okay,
along
thank you.
Alongside the existing rail alignment that way. And at this point, it then crosses over so it can then make its way down to Raleigh Union Station.
Probably in my front yard.
Well, plans are available online.
I'm going to look. Thank you. No reason to take more time with that here.
The other thing that I want to point out for just the public's purpose, this does not extend to Wade Avenue. I think a lot of people out there think that this park goes to that underpass that was created at Wade Avenue, and it does not. It ends at Dortch, and there's private businesses that the city does not has not yet acquired, and that's where Pigeon House Branch kind of rechannels under there and then goes through and then crosses under. I spent a lot of time looking at Pigeon House Branch and goes back under to the other side over where Urban Ministries is and along the public storage place, and then it crosses back under Capitol again, and then it connects over at Gateway Plaza, and that's where it dumps into Crabtree Creek. It's a
Yeah, it's funny. It does have a more somewhat naturalized flow going kind of like back and forth.
Natural
Whereas here,
culverts.
this was channelized, along the west side of the site and, a portion of it underground because of the former baseball stadium. So,
all right. Okay.
Is there a interim design for these places where we're hoping to see the next phase of this and the complexity you just described? Are there some opportunities for interim design level attention at that end that gives us more freedom when the time comes?
You mean between Dorch and Wade?
Hmm?
Do you mean the area between Dorch and Wade?
No, I mean within the scope of this project, but making that endpoint something that has lots of options for uncertain, sounds like, future.
I don't understand your question.
Okay. If you have some design for ending that on the north end.
Well, it does serve as a entryway to the park. So there
Right.
will be some type of, it won't be quite as, Peach Street is the main, almost celebratory entrance
Yeah, that's an
into
easy
the
one.
park.
Yeah.
We do have multiple other entrances into the park. We have off of Capitol, we have a few, and then we have an entrance off of West Street as well. And then we have where the Greenway Trail terminates on Dorch
That's
Street
what I'm
as well.
talking about.
So
Where
we would
does-
look to, put something there. It won't be as big of a celebration as the Peach Street Plaza, but certainly there needs to be something to acknowledge you're coming into a park, signage, maps, maybe an interpretive
And I think there's
sign or
parking
two.
there.
So, and there is a parking area up there, small. It's meant for accessible parking only. So, certainly there will be some additional thought put into how that really interacts with the right-of-way and the sidewalk on Dorch. So,
Thank you.
Sorry, I just wanted to go
sure.
back. I hate to go back to the skaters, but the question is it a way to determine, are the kids or adults, young adults that are using that skate park, are they from within that community back in the neighborhood, Glenwood area, or are they from kind of everywhere in the city? There's no way to determine that. Everywhere. Okay. All right.
they have a parking area within the site that could handle many cars. So,
okay.
That won't be available when it's green. I mean, that will be a problem for that. So anyway, thank you very much. And I think at this point, are there any other questions? We are asked to approve the schematic design and the priorities that are listed. And so I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we approve this recommendation.
Second? Second. So any further conversation, questions?
So
discuss-
just one item. Make sure I understand that Greenway Trail connectivity anticipates where the Greenway cyclist will be going next after they pass the little parking lot and the Demi Plaza on the north end.
no, trail connectivity is more let's go back to a slide. It's more those secondary pathways you see within the plan there. The main Greenway pathway is the white, the wider white line going north to south, and then there's a series of other connections. Emily previously mentioned the boardwalk areas. There's a couple other secondary trails, and then the entrances as well. That's really the trail connectivity.
So
So
there
it
isn't
will
anything in
end
the
on
current-
Dorch Street.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, it will end on Dorch Street,
It ends on
correct.
Dorch Street, and then if you were cycling north, you would go onto West Street, cross the Wade Avenue entrance on that little path and go under Wade Avenue.
Yeah, the project limits are what you see here in green. That's the 13.7 acres of the future park site.
Did that answer your question?
I'm concerned about little matters like you experience on a bicycle when you go to Pullen Park and you get off the Greenway and try to find your way to the part of the Greenway that is directly beside Western Boulevard. Goes over a little bridge near the pond, and it's not particularly a happy spot for older cyclists, at least. The younger ones may do better, but things like that are not big deals with people. And that's why I said interim, something that leaves you some room to think, how is this actually going to work for a user on a bicycle or I'm not sure those little scooters would be allowable, but assuming bicyclists will be able to use the trail through the park.
And to answer your question, I think that your question is somewhat beyond the scope of the schematic design. And so if we're addressing the schematic design and the recommendations and priorities outlined there, I'll call that for a vote, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. One opposed.
Oh, I'll have to add myself to the opposed.
Two opposed. All right. Thank you very much. And
All right. Thank you all.
you've been working on this a long time. I hope that remediation happens quickly. There's a lot of dry cleaner fluid down there.
There really is.
All right. The next item on our agenda is the Raleigh Park System Plan, and that we have TJ McCourt coming up to make that presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Here to present to you with an update on the Raleigh Parks System Plan update. We'll be sharing a progress report with you, a high-level overview of how we've done on executing upon the action items that we set out 10 years ago in 2014 when the system plan was adopted. First, we want to take a quick look back at Phase 2 of our engagement strategy for the system plan update, which took place over this past winter through January and February, the last time that we talked with you all. Since then, we've been able to have a number of focus group conversations. So this included members of numerous boards and commissions around the city, some of you from the Parks Advisory Board, in addition to BPAC and Planning Commission and others that have an interest in what we do at Raleigh Parks, as well as representatives from community organizations and nonprofits that we engage with, again, all throughout the community. For our direct public engagement with the community this phase, rather than have kind of standalone public workshops where we ask people to come to us, we decided to get out into our community centers, toss the community engagement keys over to staff in our recreation division, and had a number of pop-ups at community centers throughout the city. So we found some community centers that have a great deal of foot traffic, that serve different communities in different geographic areas around the city. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on the outcomes there, but that was a really great result for us, kind of a new engagement strategy we're trying out, and it's something that we'll definitely use in other projects going forward. As always, we have an online survey that paralleled what we did in person. Got some good responses there, and a lot of engagement in general with our engagement hub website for this project, where people are learning about what's going on. You can see in the map here a comparison of where we are reaching folks, both online and in person. And as we have throughout this project, since it is a citywide planning project, we're trying a diversity of approaches to make sure that we reach as many different people as we can. And as always, we continue to see kind of different success rates depending on what we do online and what we do in person. You can see on the map to the right those community centers that we decided to use for this phase of engagement to spread things around the outskirts of the city. Overall, if we look back through both phases of engagement so far, we do still see some blind spots, particularly in Northwest Raleigh and Northeast Raleigh. We've had a heavy focus on reaching out to typically traditionally underrepresented communities, folks that we usually have a harder time engaging with in South and Southeast Raleigh. That's really been where our effort has been, where our focus has been so far, and I think we're succeeding in that. But, of course, we do want to hear from everybody in the city. So looking forward to our next phase of engagement, we'll be doing a little bit more up there in Northwest and Northeast Raleigh. These boards are an example of some of the pop-up engagement we did at our community centers. We were really interested in digging into our level of service standards. So this is we were asking the distances that folks expect to travel to have different types of park experiences. How far do you want to go to get to a neighborhood center or an arts center? And how would you like to get there, right? Asking if people typically walk or bike versus drive or take transit. And you can see we got some really great responses. And again, this was a really good opportunity for us to use our community center as what they're meant to be, right? Hubs for the community. So we had a lot of good feedback from staff who were able to engage directly with neighbors coming into the community centers, folks who are signed up for programs that we might not usually get as much of a chance to build a relationship with. But this gave us a chance to strike up a conversation, tell them about what we're working on, what this plan is all about, and other things going on in Raleigh Parks. Like I said, worked really, really well, got some great data, great feedback out of that. So taking a step back here as we get into the progress report phase of the presentation, wanted to set the framework for how our system plan informs other planning documents in the city, right? So the system plan, just like many other individual departments throughout the city have a guiding document like this one. The park system plan supports the city's overall comprehensive plan, which is then informed by a strategic plan that is almost the tip of the spear that looks to the next 3 to 5 years, right? So where the system plan and the comprehensive plan are very long-range planning documents, we have strategic plans that help us focus our efforts on initiatives in the short term. So for the system plan, we had a number of goals when we set out for community engagement here. One was that we wanted to confirm that our vision for the park system is still relevant, bringing people to parks and parks to people. We wanted to take a look at our guiding principles. We have 8 guiding principles that help us shape our goals and objectives for the implementation plan, and we wanted to make sure that those were still relevant and refine them where we needed to. And finally, that implementation plan, which is kind of the tip of the spear for the park system plan, the goals, objectives, and action items that we set out. We wanted to report on those and revise them moving forward so that for the next 5 to 10 years, we are tackling those initiatives that are most important to our community. So first, to share some of the refinements we've made to our guiding principles. This was a big focus on the first round of community engagement that we did, where we asked people what they value most in Raleigh's park system, in all the programs and services and facilities that we provide. What do they look to Raleigh Parks for, and what do they value the most? We heard loud and clear that equity and justice were a high priority for everyone throughout the city. In 2014, we were thinking a lot about equitable distribution, spreading things evenly throughout the city geographically. But today, we have heard loud and clear that we want to focus on equity in all its dimensions, thinking about social justice, racial justice, environmental justice, and the role that we in Raleigh Parks have to play in righting those past wrongs. In 2014, we also talked a lot about communication and engagement, but we know now that in order to be really effective there, it's more about building community than it is about having transactional engagement opportunities, right? It is about building that sense of belonging. It is about building, those relationships that last for more than just a single night at a public workshop or a few months during an individual project. It's really about building relationships between the Parks Department and the people that we serve. There's a renewed focus on culture and history. So what we do, not just through our arts programs and our historic resources programs, but the role that Raleigh Parks has in keeping those memories alive of where we came from, of helping communities tell their story and express themselves through public art, through our public spaces. And we take that responsibility very seriously. And so it's going to be memorialized here in our new guiding principles around culture and history. And finally, resilience and stewardship, I think, was a blind spot for us in 2014. We all know the role that the park system and the open space system can play in contributing to a city's overall climate resilience and the issues that we're facing environmentally. And so again, to make sure that that remains a priority for us moving forward, we've added resilience and stewardship to our list of guiding principles.
Can you go back to that slide and explain the difference? I mean, what your original guiding principles, and I mean, you've got two different things where they're sometimes the same, and I just don't quite understand how the evolution occurred. So
Absolutely, absolutely. So these were our original guiding principles. And again, we thought they were probably still going to be pretty good, but needed some refinement. And so you can kind of see in the picture in the background here, this is just one of the exercises we went through at a lot of our pop-up engagement and public workshops during that first phase. Each of those oak leaves kind of has a different set of potential guiding principles on them, right? Different values when we ask people what they value most in the park system. And so through conversations like that and things that we did, similar questions in an online survey, we were able to really sort through, find out which of the guiding principles still rang true with people, but then also gave them the opportunity to tell us, what are we missing, right? What are those blind spots? And that's where we keyed in on some of those that are highlighted in yellow here as the areas that we needed some updating, needed some refinement.
And so the ones on the left are now the new guiding principles.
That's
I'm
correct.
sorry,
Yep, yep.
you just, I know you're so immersed in it that, that I had a feeling maybe I wasn't the only one who didn't follow.
No, I appreciate that. Yes, yeah, the list on the left there are our new guiding principles. So, moving on now to our implementation plan, just wanting to provide again that high-level reporting back. There'll be a more detailed progress report along with the final system plan update report. But we can take a look now at our overall progress by subsystem. So again, in the system plan that was passed in 2014, we had over 300 action items, and they were divided up into these 8 subsystems. Roughly speaking, each of these subsystems represents something like a different division within Raleigh Parks. Right? So we have athletics for recreation, Greenways, our natural environments group, Raleigh Arts and Historic Resources, as well as some focused areas like growth centers to help us think specifically about how we are interacting in and around downtown. These percentages represent an estimate. We're still refining some of these numbers, but this is a pretty good indication of how well we've done in these different subsystem areas since 2014. On average, we've completed around 90% of the action items that we set out to complete in 2014 over the past 10 years.
So go back again to that one. You mentioned the environment and stewardship as a new guiding principle, and I doubt that in 2014 we had a director of stewardship like we do today.
That's right.
And so where does that fit? So that would be under natural environments, I guess.
That's right. Yeah, there would be something similar to that as an objective somewhere in the natural environments subsystem. And as
there you go.
Right. Right on cue. This is just an example of something that you'll see again in that final progress report. We will be digging into each of those subsystems, giving a full breakdown of how many action items we've completed, are on track, how many are a work in progress right now that we might be a little bit behind schedule on in terms of that 10-year time frame that we're looking at, but that we are actively working toward. The example we call out here is Objective 4A, develop regional outdoor adventure hubs. That's something that in 2014 we hoped to be able to get done within 10 years. We're not quite there, but we are working on, for example, the Neuse River Park Master Plan. We've made a lot of advancements down at Lake Wheeler in terms of making it a rowing destination. And so those are 2 of the action items within that objective that, again, we're a little bit behind schedule, but we've got the resources, we've got the focus and the attention, and it is a work in progress. So what's next? We're moving into phase 3 of the system plan update now. Again, where we're going to be developing that new action plan, that new tip of the spear that's going to guide us in the 5 to 10 years coming up. We're going to move from the 300-something action items that we established in 2014 and really focus in on what's most important to the community. And to that end, and we'll be coming back to the Parks Board and Parks Committee to help work through this idea, but guided by best practices in park system planning around the country, thinking about those guiding principles that we've heard are the most valuable to the community. We are going to be repositioning the framework for this plan to be more more focused on community outcomes, right? Thinking about those subsystems, it's a very internally focused document today. It's something that works well for staff if you're embedded in the Parks Department to find out, okay, where does my job fit in? But if you're a member of the community, looking at the system plan doesn't do much for you to help you understand what is Raleigh Parks doing for me. And so we want to change that. The idea that we're going to move forward with, or we're intending to move forward with and wanting to test with you all and the community, is to position ourselves around the impacts that we have on public health. So what can Raleigh Parks do in terms of people's physical health outcomes, in terms of mental well-being, how parks and community centers help strengthen social connections and social health, and of course, as we've discussed, what we do to improve environmental health and climate resilience. So that health framework and those different dimensions of public health are going to be the new organizing principle that we want to move forward with. And we're also going to be applying some different lenses, again, to think about community outcomes, what is the impact that we're having on people's lives. And some of those lenses are going to be almost at different scales. First, we're going to think about how are we impacting individuals or people at the family level. Then zooming out a little bit, what are we doing to help communities, to help strengthen ties within neighborhoods, to help people find others who have shared interests and build communities that way? What are we doing to help strengthen that social integration and social cohesion within the city? And then finally, zooming out even farther, what is our impact overall on the environment? Thinking about that kind of green print lens, what are we doing to impact things at a regional or even contribute to a global scale. Cross-cutting across all of those lenses is going to be a fourth, looking at internally into the organization. What are we doing to support and empower employees to be creative and innovative? How are we working across departments to reach shared objectives for the city? And what can we do to become a better, more sustainable organization overall? As part of that, we will, again, be having in-person public meetings targeting those areas in Northwest and Northeast Raleigh in particular to make sure we close the gap there, in addition to a whole suite of other engagement activities we'll be doing all around town. And finally, again, working with you all in a number of different ways. Coming up at the end of March, a number of you have signed up to participate in the focus groups that we're doing with the Trust for Public Land through our Park Equity Accelerator. And so we're looking forward to talking with you there about some of these ideas and more. In April, we'll be engaging in staff workshops, getting folks involved from all around the department, again, to work through this new framework, this new community-oriented approach that we want to move forward with. And then in May, we'll have our public meetings, which will set us up well to come back to the Parks Committee in June with some draft plans and again, kind of workshop through what we've learned through our public engagement this spring. And targeting right now to bring a draft plan to you all in July and hoping to move forward with City Council review in August. That's all I have on this item, but I'm happy to have a discussion or answer any questions.
Great. Well, I'm sure there will be some questions from board members about this. I have one, of course. But when at one location that I was surprised, and it was hard to read all of the locations where you'd done your pop-up things, but Shelley Lake and Sertoma Art Center, and it seemed in your location that while you had some issues related to Northeast and Northwest Raleigh, that also it looked like the center area was in pretty light color.
Yeah.
And that right smack is where Shelley Lake is. And so
Right.
I would suggest that draws from across the community and would be a really good place for a pop-up.
Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic suggestion. It makes me think too, right? We have the bond project coming up to work on Sertoma Art Center. And so that's another thing we're going to be doing is tagging on to the engagement that we're already doing for our bond projects because we have lots of engagement going on all around the city.
Yeah.
and trying to help people avoid that planning fatigue, right? Continually tapping into them for more
Well,
and
and
more meetings.
That was exactly. I was also going to say, up in the northern part, we've had tremendous response to the Neuse River Park,
Yes, we
and
have.
so yeah, people may have felt like, well, I just expressed myself. I'm not going to express myself to the park system, so that may impact some of your, because we've definitely had record-setting response there. So.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. A conversation we actually had last week was, for example, when we do our next survey for Neuse River Park, we're going to make sure it's very easy for people to click on a link if they're interested in talking about the park system as a whole. And again, that'll feed directly into this project. So yeah, definitely leveraging those projects we already have going on.
All right. Other comments, questions?
One question here. Thanks for the presentation. I have one question about the timeline. So there's one slide showing where we are for the current phase. And just wondering.
Sorry about that. Yep. We will get there. There we go.
Oh, not this one.
Oh,
It's
well.
But it's
Sorry,
okay.
go on with
So
your
just
question.
wondering, when did phase 1 and 2 happened?
So
Yeah.
phase 1 was primarily last fall, wrapping up around Thanksgiving, and phase 2 happened December, January, February.
And if you want to send out an email, if you need other people to be in the PRGAB focus groups for next week, you can resend and re-ask that.
Yeah,
Now that
let's
we've
definitely
had
get a
your
reminder out.
presentation, it may stimulate some additional interest by board members. And then would you mind sending to all of us a link to that TPL document that you...
Absolutely.
Because clearly that's a powerful document that's had spillover effect in you all's thinking, and so it would be helpful for us to actually see primary sources there.
Yeah, we'd be more than happy to do that. They're a great organization providing a lot of the research backing to these ideas, right? Actually have the data to back up the policy side of things. It's actually some really, really powerful stuff. So yeah, we're more than happy to share that.
I want to say something. This presentation just makes my heart feel so full. I just all these elements that are focused on. It feels so holistic, and good work. Keep it up, all of us.
Thank you. That's why we do the job. That's great to hear.
It's a good comment, and it is. It's very. You didn't just go back and do a checklist thing. It's important that we shift gears and think more broadly as our community grows and changes. Yeah, exactly. So, very good. Well, thank you very much, and I think you're on for the next agenda item, so you can stay right there. It is Raleigh Parks Rezoning and Development Plan Review.
Right. So one of the other things our park planning group does, in addition to system plans and park master plans, is we represent Raleigh Parks in development plan review. So anytime there's a rezoning petition where a landowner wants to upzone their property to, say, build a higher residential density, we get involved and help City Council understand what the impacts are going to be on natural resources, on park and greenway access, and how we might be able to leverage that private investment toward the public benefit.
Where is that slide?
This is Homewood Banks. So this is a project out by the Crabtree Valley Mall. I'll actually be going into some more detail on this one. It's one of our
Doesn't look
one of our
like
case
it's
studies.
wide enough for standard.
This was an early one. That's one of the things we'll be able to talk through. So in the director's report, starting last month and now moving forward, you'll have a heads up to all of the rezoning cases that are going to be before Planning Commission and City Council that we think you all might have an interest in. So these are areas where we are encouraging private developers to consider contributing to our public art inventory, greenway connections set aside for additional open space or natural resource protections. There's a number of things that we encourage through our rezoning review. So we'll be letting you all know when those are going to be before Planning Commission and City Council in case you'd like to get involved. There's links to our engagement portal. engage.raleighNC.gov/rezonings is the best place to go. There's plenty of information there on the best ways to submit questions to planning staff, comments directly to the Planning Commission. And again, those links will be in the director's report each month. But in general, this flow chart shows the engagement process for any rezoning application that comes to the city. So initially, we'll meet with the developer, staff will meet with a rezoning applicant and have what's called a pre-application conference. So that's where they come in, just kind of talk generally through their plans. And we can give them some initial feedback, initial ideas, give them a heads up. If there's a greenway nearby they might want to think about, different things like that. After that, they'll submit the formal application and we'll write a formal review in an initial review letter and a staff report. And that's where we'll go through and we'll cite different policies in the city's comprehensive plan that might encourage, right, the private provision of public park space or connections to greenways or tree protection, whatever it might be, and encourage rezoning applicants to look at these policies and come up with conditions they might offer to further those policies. At both of these steps, developers are also required to have neighborhood meetings, which are open to the public, and you all could attend there to directly.
How does the reinstatement of CACs integrate with neighborhood meeting?
It's a great question, and I'm not certain yet. Right in the past, previously, it was mandatory that as part of your neighborhood meeting obligation, you had to present to a CAC, and the CAC actually issued a vote, which would then go on the record to Planning Commission. Stephen, do you know if that's coming back as a mandatory part of the process?
At this point, it is not, but it's a fluid state with the CACs and the council discussion.
Mm-hmm. From there, based on what a rezoning applicant has heard from neighbors and what they've heard from us on staff, they'll revise their application and formally submit it to the Planning Commission. Then there will be a number of public meetings usually where Planning Commission considers each rezoning case. And again, that's a great time to get your comments in if you're interested. Ultimately, they'll make a recommendation to City Council, who will hold another public hearing, another opportunity for everyone to get involved and speak directly with council, who ultimately issues the decision on whether or not to approve a rezoning application. In terms of caseload volume, we process a little over 500 cases every year. So this includes both rezoning applications and then other sorts of development plan review, right? Subdivision plans, site plans, things like that, where we enforce the city's greenway ordinances and look for other opportunities to partner with private development. We are on pace to exceed these numbers for 2024. Raleigh is growing fast. So there's a lot to keep up with, but also a lot of opportunity.
Are all of these successful? Like all of the applications for rezoning, are they successful?
So I believe in 2022, the approval rate was near 100%. I can't say that that's true about 2023, but yes, I'd say the majority of rezoning applications do end up getting approved by City Council, at least looking over the last couple of years. I'll say though, right, they go through a lot of refinement through the public hearing process, through the Planning Commission process. So the rezoning application that ends up getting approved is usually very different from what's initially submitted because of the feedback that we provide as staff, that you all and other members of the public provide, and the changes that get made at Planning Commission and City Council.
I think Ms. Ashcraft has a question.
How long has this process been in effect, please?
That's a great question. So I personally have been doing this since about 2018, 2019 is when I took over. Since then, my lovely staff team over there have joined me to help, again, manage the volume that we have to. I would say that it's really been over the last 5 years that we've really started getting traction and understanding how to leverage this role in the review process. previous to that, I don't know that Raleigh Parks
You're right.
took full advantage of being able to make planning commission and make city council aware of the impacts that some of these projects are having, and right, nobody was making developers aware of the opportunities. So that's one of the things we do, especially at that early stage at those pre-application conferences, is let developers know, hey, listen, we've got a plan coming up for a Greenway trail that's going to come right next to your development. If you plan ahead and work with us to build a connection, maybe preemptively even, in a couple of years, we're going to come through with a Greenway trail. You're going to be able to hook right into it. Obviously, that's good for their rent, their advertising, everything else. So it's a real win-win scenario for us, being able to provide better access to parks and for the private development community as well.
Thank you for telling me that the process is evolving and we hope improving all along. Do you have any figures for what percentage of the cases that have gone before the city council have been approved since this program began?
I don't. We could get you some summary statistics, though, and maybe throw it in the next director's report next month.
One final question.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are the developers made aware of obligations as well as their opportunities? For example, there have been several rezonings associated with 3 different parks, and they were all approved, and I've seen pictures of the erosion and damage that was caused as a result of these approvals. And we do want to involve our commercial community in support of parks. But I just would like to emphasize the importance of democracy involving the residents and the other members of the larger community and what they think should be done with the park, and not just what the developers may be doing. I know that some of the developers are cooperative. They're just like other human beings. Some are cooperative, some are not. Some have to be tapped on the head a couple of times to get their attention. But I feel that the process has historically been a little more favorable to the developer than to the city of Raleigh and its inhabitants. I'm glad to hear that this is slowly evolving to some standard that I'm not aware of that will be a better standard. I appreciate your letting us know this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a great point and point well taken. Yeah, and I would say, right, in terms of that democratic process, that's why these planning commission hearings are open to the public. That's why the city council public hearings are what they are. They are an opportunity for you all to voice those concerns directly.
And you're going to give us advance notice from now on?
That's right.
Before it goes to the city council?
That's right, and we will be highlighting the cases that we've been directly involved with in terms of negotiating for zoning conditions and where we've made direct suggestions. That said, there's a lot of rezoning cases that won't be directly flagged in the director's report, but engage.raleighnc.gov/rezoning is a great way to go. You can check in on all of the cases that are coming up for public hearings. There might be some that you're interested in that don't directly impact one of our properties or projects that we won't necessarily get directly involved with, but might still be of interest to you.
Thank you.
Well, related to that question, can you go back a couple of slides to where it showed yes, that. So from the director's report, where are we on the inform arrows? Are we at the planning commission, city council level, or are we between
Yeah, we are at the planning commission and city council level. That's the information that will be in the director's report. And at that point, we will have issued a staff report that you'll be able to go read because it'll be on the planning commission agenda or the city council agenda in the same way that the Parks Board agendas are available on board docs. They are for planning commission and city council as well. So we'll provide links to those.
So we'll be notified before the planning commission stage?
That's absolutely right, yeah.
And this is a work in process because
is.
we are not there yet.
Yes. And I will let you know, there are always some hiccups with timing, with when the Planning Commission agenda gets published relative to when we submit the director's report. So forgive us, some things inevitably will slip through the cracks. But again, there's a lot of information online, a lot of resources online for you to empower yourselves as well. We'll be doing our best to support. Okay. Brief overview. I've said the word zoning conditions a lot, but just want to make sure that we're clear on some terminology. These are voluntary conditions that a rezoning applicant can offer, which will essentially become law, right? It is part of the development regulation attached to that property that's being rezoned. If that property is going to be developed, then certain conditions have to be met. I do want to emphasize these are always voluntary, right? They cannot be compelled by the city or by city staff. We can't have some sort of quid pro quo arrangement where, okay, if you do this, we'll give you the thumbs up, right? That is strictly illegal and not activity that we engage in, which is why, though, again, right, we help developers kind of understand and articulate some of the public benefit that can go along with the types of conditions we get involved with, and ultimately to demonstrate that their project holistically is consistent with city policies and helps advance city policies in the comprehensive plan. And that's ultimately the test that City Council applies when deciding whether or not to approve a rezoning case. Is it consistent with the city's comprehensive plan overall? Some examples at the bottom here of the types of rezoning conditions that we've been successful in negotiating for. I won't read them out, but we will walk through a few cases here that highlight some of the different types of projects we've gotten done. Seeing that we've already spent quite a bit of time, I'll breeze through these as quickly as I can, but happily to pause at any point if you want to dig in.
Can you go back to that? Because even if you're not going to read them, we need to take a second to look at them.
Sure. So I will step through each one of these.
Go to that Homewood Banks where the lousy
so we'll be able to talk about that one directly. Yeah, we just took 10 examples. We probably have had little over 50 of these projects over the last 5 years. Again, they're all at different stages of the development process, right? A lot of times a rezoning case might be approved and the development doesn't actually get constructed until 5 or 6 years later, right? Just like our projects take a long time, these development projects take a long time as well. But let me just walk through some of them just to share some examples. One I want to highlight is the Southeast Raleigh YMCA. This was an early win for us. Y'all might remember, if you've been around for a little while, Dexter Herbert was a former member of the Parks Board and director of the Southeast Raleigh YMCA. We were talking about our Neighborhood and Community Connections program at the time and wanting to do more things just like this. And so we had a conversation with Dexter and some others involved in the YMCA development to say, hey, look, you've got this great community campus you're building, affordable housing component, Walnut Creek Trail runs right on the other side of the creek. What can we do to get a bridge built? So ultimately, we're able to partner with them to get it done, incorporated into their construction documents, as you can see here. And today, out on the ground, we've got a lovely connection from that YMCA campus and a bridge installed across Walnut Creek. Makes it so that kids at the YMCA can walk 5 or 10 minutes down the Greenway Trail to Walnut Creek Wetland Park. Really great contribution to the park system.
Was all of that done through private development? We didn't spend any of our
That's exactly right,
$0
$0
money on that.
You'll see for all of these examples, actually, the city spent exactly $0. We just leveraged our role again in that development process to get these accomplished. Homewood Banks, this was the example from the title slide. So again, this is just south of Crabtree Valley Mall. The connection that we got done provides access to a future Greenway corridor. There's a natural surface trail down there today, not formally part of the Greenway system. But I like to highlight this one as an example because what it gives us the opportunity to do is get construction like this done at the time of development that would otherwise be impossible for us to come back and do later. Right? I think if we look back over 10 or 20 years of development in Raleigh, we have a lot of apartment complexes adjacent to our Greenway trails that put up 20 or 30 foot high retaining walls, and it is impossible for us, right, to go back and retrofit any sort of access point there. Through this one, we were able to get it done. Is it perfect? No, it's not, right? It's not ADA accessible. There are stairs, not paths and switchbacks, as the chair pointed out. This is a 6-foot sidewalk, not built to City of Raleigh Greenway standards. I'll tell you, since then, we've learned some lessons. We now have Greenway details adopted that we require be referenced directly so that everything that gets built is built to our standards. Again, it's an evolving process, lessons learned along the way, but one way or another, this is access for hundreds of residents of Raleigh to the Greenway system that wouldn't have happened otherwise. Another kind of similar project, much more recent. This rezoning case was passed in 2019 and is currently under construction. This is right out near the Crabtree West extension. So Durley Road is what you can see cutting through the image here. And we worked with the apartment complex that was coming in to secure conditions for a direct connection down to where the Crabtree West Trail is going to come through. We can look at another image here. You can see Hanson Quarry in the background. Again, Crabtree West follows along that alignment, and the connection that they built for us leads from their apartment complex directly down to the trail. Without that, right, residents here would have had to, I don't know what, run across Durley Road and take their lives in their hands to get onto the Greenway Trail, or scramble down a very steep hillside, right, to get down to the trail. So we were able to work with them, get this connection. Again, not perfect. We had to negotiate around 50 feet of vertical elevation, but we did get a stairway built that has a bike ramp built up along the side of the stairs, right? So people who are biking on the Greenway Trail can easily get up and down, even though they needed to negotiate those 50 feet or so. Again, construction of the project is still underway, but you can see some progress photos here. And to look down at the Crabtree West Trail and our Greenway suspension bridge there in the background that they're tying into.
Well, the question then is, if this is still under construction and we are providing our standards and they're not building to our standards, then it's not exactly a home run.
So
You got
all
the second
voluntary.
base.
It is all
all
voluntary,
voluntary.
right? So that's
Yeah.
again, that's all part of that negotiation process. We will advocate for accessible design standards wherever we possibly can. At the end of the day, it is up to the developer whether or not they're willing to offer that. I'll also say that this was rezoning conditions that we secured back in 2019, so already quite a while ago. And so I think, yeah, we might have better luck, might have a little bit more know-how these days to be able to get a little bit of a better end product.
Can I interrupt you for a moment? So it's all voluntary, but they still have to build to basic code, right? It's not.
Yes, exactly. So all these rezoning conditions are above and beyond standard city code requirements.
But just not the Greenway code. That's the difference.
Well, that's in our city code today. There is no requirement to build a connection to an adjacent Greenway trail. There's actually a text change ordinance going through the Planning Commission hearing process that's highlighted in the director's report that will make what required savvy negotiation over the past few years will now become part of the city's development ordinance and will be a requirement for all new developments coming in adjacent to a Greenway trail to build these sorts of connections.
And then at that point, is the cutoff for maintenance and operations right at the Greenway? Like, is the developer will be responsible for the connection?
It's a great question. Let me use this example to answer. So this is Peace River Village. This is out on the east side of the Neuse River. You can see Buffalo Road Athletic Park highlighted in green. Peace River Village is located right here. And this is the Neuse River Trail, right? It runs up, jogs over a Greenway bridge across the Neuse to tie into Buffalo Road Athletic Park. When this development came through, we said, look, you don't have park access within probably 3 miles traveling along the road network. Nobody can walk to a park from this location. But if you help tie into the existing Greenway network, all of a sudden, right, you'd have walkable access to Buffalo Road Athletic Park and the rest of the Neuse River Trail. So they offered to build this connection for us. And in terms of those maintenance standards, the way this one worked, the part of the trail that is on their property, so inside that white highlighted area, is privately maintained. They built the rest of the trail connection through our Greenway easements, so we had to work with them on getting permission to do that on behalf of the city, and we'll take on maintenance of that portion of the trail. And so here's their subdivision plan, again, showing that connection from their internal sidewalk network, from the public right-of-way, ultimately connecting down to the trail. And again, this would be the dividing line where we take over maintenance versus what's required to be privately maintained, but always publicly accessible. As you can see on these plans, it's all located within a public access easement that ties into the sidewalk.
Puts a greenway awfully close to people's homes.
It is, and we've heard nothing but rave reviews so far. Again, just some quick images. This is our Greenway Trail where the connection ties in. You can see it going under the bridge there, tying back to the neighborhood. Adcock Family Farm is another similar one to that, where we're actually building out, again, with zero funding required on the city's behalf, some significant additions to the Greenway network. This one over 3,000 feet, over half a mile of Greenway Trail getting built. So this is the Adcock Family Farm property that was rezoned in 2021. The Neuse River Trail runs down on, the west side of the Neuse River. We've got the Milburnie Park property highlighted in green here. What we were able to secure through zoning conditions is a Greenway Trail built out along the Neuse River, kind of zigzags through the middle of their property, and then a multi-use trail down Old Milburnie Road. So there is a little gap here that the city will need to fill in the future in order to provide that full walkable access to the Greenway Trail. But we've gotten them, again, to get in ahead of the game, contribute about 3/4 of a mile toward that Greenway Trail build out.
So I'm particularly familiar with this property. There's a conservation easement on the Beaver Dam Lakes.
Yep, that's right.
And so is there buffer there? And
yes, so our ordinances require a greenway buffer to be dedicated. So it's 150 feet along the Neuse River that's required. And then I'm not positive about the lakes. I want to say it's 75 feet. I could be mistaken about that. But again, yes, that's through our development ordinance today. Enforces those buffers.
And FYI, the people would love to donate that to the city of Raleigh. Hadn't happened yet.
Oh, they can call me.
They have talked with.
In addition to Greenway Connection, sometimes we're successful in getting actual parkland and park development committed to. So this example is the North Ridge Apartments. This is up off Spring Forest Road, north of Cedar Hills Park. And we actually worked with them. They were doing a planned development, so kind of like a campus plan for redeveloping this apartment complex. And they set aside 5 acres to be dedicated and developed as a public park space. So you can see in their
Is it wetland?
In their master plans, there is a stream corridor that runs through there. Yes, so there are certainly wetland areas that were protected as part of this. But sub-district C is the area that was dedicated as public park space. And again, on the satellite images, you can see what that area is like today. This area is being developed currently. It is under construction, but you can see some of the landscaping, seating, some open play fields, a small dog park. There will be a playground constructed as part of this as well. Again, all open to the general public. Bridge connections to the new apartments that have gone in for those residents as well. So a great asset for the folks living there, but for the city as a whole as well. We've also been able to get involved in some major development projects and really, again, kind of leverage that private investment to get good stuff for the city as a whole. One I'll highlight here is North Hills East, also known as the North Hills Innovation District. It's this whole area along St. Albans Drive, east of what we would probably think of as North Hills today. If we look at kind of the 3D satellite image, right, everything you'd think of as North Hills, all the big built-up area here, the North Hills Innovation District is next to that. So when you're on 440 and you see a bunch of buildings under construction, that's part of the Innovation District being built out.
Where is the proposed bridge over the Beltline?
So that would come through, bridge. It's a little bit off screen, but essentially right here would be that multimodal bridge over 440.
And so how would it make a connection?
So the Big Branch Creek, let's see how many colors I can play with here. The Big Branch Creek runs through, it's actually more like this, right through adjacent to the North Hills Innovation District. So what we were able to do is get them to commit to building out all of the Greenway connectivity on the west side of Big Branch Creek. Where the multimodal bridge comes over, we would be able to pick up and carry along on the east side of Big Branch Creek. Ultimately, as this road network gets built out, it would actually create a pretty nice loop around the creek. We've had discussions with them about potentially some sort of bridge. As of right now, we think it's probably better to let the stream corridor alone. It wouldn't be worth the natural resource impacts to bring a bridge directly across when we might have a multi-use path network in place instead that could leave that stream corridor untouched. There's just a little site plan showing the building footprint layout relative to the Greenway Trail that they've committed to build. We're working with them through development plans right now. Pretty complicated process. We've gotten creative though, and it'll come in phases.
Can you show us where the path is on this elevation?
Absolutely. So from St. Albans Road here, the path will come down past the Channel House is built today. So they've got a lot of maker spaces, retail along a boardwalk that's there today right off of St. Albans. That Greenway Trail will be getting built out to Hardemont Road. A crosswalk will take you across Hardemont and then will be built out here. Going back up to St. Albans, and eventually in the later phases of the project will extend down to the south as well.
And which part is the developer paying for?
All of it.
All of it.
Yeah, we're not paying for any of this, but it will be incorporated into the city's Greenway network, all publicly accessible, designed to our standards, and in this case, above and beyond our standards. You can see some of the renderings here, highlighting the Greenway as part of the development, integrated into their mixed-use concept here. Of course, renderings are worth about as much as the paper they're printed on, but this is something that because we see these cases come through first at rezoning, and then the same folks who work on the rezoning case see it at subdivision review and every stage of site plan review and building permit review. We get to make sure that they are holding up to the agreements, and we make sure that the zoning ordinance is being enforced to the strictest extent possible.
So that area's lost a lot of trees.
Oh, it sure has.
So will they be planting a lot of trees?
They will. They will be doing a lot of replanting. They're going to be doing some stream restoration on that tributary out to Big Branch Creek as well. This is one of those cases where this development is probably going to happen no matter what we have to say. But we can at least do our best to get as much out of it as we can in terms of the public benefit that we get along with it. It's also a good opportunity for us, like a number of these cases at the end of the slide deck here, to think about how the Greenway network can be better integrated with retail destinations like this, mixed-use development, residential density. This is one of those projects that's going to be an early example of how our Greenway trails can be really well integrated with that type of experience. Park City South is another similar example, large mixed-use development. So this is just along Lake Wheeler Road. The Rocky Branch Trail is on the opposite side of a creek from where the development comes through. So this is all Dix Park, everything in this direction. And when they came through, we worked with them in a very similar approach, right? So they're going to be building out a Greenway trail on the opposite side of Rocky Branch Creek. They're thinking of it as a pedestrian promenade along the creek, as well as a bridge. So there'll be a direct bridge connection to the Rocky Branch Trail, which connects out to Walnut Creek Trail and everything else to the east. And they'll be improving that pedestrian crossing across Lake Wheeler Road, developing a new entrance into Dix Park. There's some public art required as part of that rezoning as well. Again, you can kind of see it here in their development plans and some of their marketing materials, highlighting that pedestrian promenade and the bridge.
So is it elevated? Because there's a lot of steepness there.
There is. I don't believe so. Not the pedestrian promenade is going to be built quite a bit back from the creek. The bridge, of course, is going to need elevation for the landings and everything else like that. But yeah, the way they've configured their promenade, right? We have a nice healthy buffer between any hardscape and the creek itself. I'll say too, this site today, there are parking lots built out to within 10 feet of the top of bank. So this is actually a significant improvement above the pre-existing condition.
And what is the trail in the woods? Is that just something they're?
Yeah, it's just a walking trail that they're going to be building.
Looks like it crosses the creek, though.
Right, yeah. They want people to have opportunities to get down by the water, that sort of thing. Yep.
It looks like a lot of built land close to a stream corridor. I'd be interested in all their stormwater management plans.
It's going in that
So-
blue
Yep.
box.
Oh, that blue box, no, it's going down to Walnut Creek and Rose Lane.
That one, unlike the other ones, was a planned development, so it had a whole lot more scrutiny.
Yep.
As it was being put together.
And again, another rendering showing the integration between this pedestrian promenade, which will become part of the Greenway network, and some of the ground floor retail development proposed. Downtown South was another one that we got involved with, along with just about everybody else in the city. Major proposal down off of South Saunders Street near I-40. I'll highlight that for this one. We were able to secure commitments to building two public parks, one 6-acre park and one 8-acre park, with a list of amenities that need to be provided. That'll be a dog park, multi-purpose courts, sports fields. Those will all come in, again, as this development comes through. Of course, there are serious natural resource impacts, watershed impacts with a development of this scale. But again, we were at least able to leverage it so that we as the city aren't on the hook for meeting the new demand that this development is going to create. By getting them to commit to building these parks, integrating them as that development comes online, we are going to save ourselves a whole lot of time and money that we would otherwise need to spend helping to serve this new development in the future, and it offsets the impacts that this would have to nearby parks like Eliza Pool Park, Carol Lee Park, that are serving those existing neighborhoods. Right, if you're gonna dump 2,000 new residential units, where those neighborhood parks are the only places serving the recreation needs of these new residents, we're gonna have conflicts, we're gonna have trouble. So again, this approach helps head off some of those issues.
Do any of them have a community center?
No community center. No.
So the condition to use native plants, they can just say, we're not going to do that?
Oh, no, those are all part of the zoning conditions.
So
Yeah.
some things they have to do, but other things they don't have to do?
Anything that is included in a rezoning application as a zoning condition that gets approved by city council becomes law.
Okay.
So it is a zoning ordinance. So in addition to the city's regular development ordinances, they also have to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance.
How do we check that they are doing that, though?
That's one of the functions that we do. So as they come through for a subdivision plan to create new lots and a new street alignment, we make sure that they're setting aside the space that they're supposed to. As they do site plans, right, we're there every step of the way. We keep an eye on it. There are also dedicated review staff within the Planning and Development Department who are specifically there for zoning enforcement. So we have a two-pronged approach there. They help us make sure we don't miss anything, and we help them make sure we're pushing back as hard as we can.
So TJ, those renderings that you showed, those buildings look like they had rooftop gardens. Is that really going to happen?
No, probably not. Last project I'll highlight here is one that was approved just in the last few months. Again, very large development out on the east side of the Neuse River, now going by the name of Banks 20. This was the Hodge Road plan development. This was a case where, again, we have the Neuse River Greenway Trail on the opposite side of the Neuse River from this development, and wanted to make City Council and Planning Commission and everybody else aware that if you're going to be adding so many new residences in this area, we are not going to be able to serve them with public resources, with access to public parks. And so their zoning conditions include development of a Greenway Trail on the east side of the Neuse River, a trail network throughout their development. One that I was really happy with is we got a commitment from them to build 10 pocket parks throughout the development, so that every single residence that gets built as part of this neighborhood is within a 10-minute walk of at least one of those parks. So that's our new level of service standard we're going to be establishing with the system plan update, right? That desire to provide every resident in the city with 10-minute walk access to a park. And frankly, we're not going to be able to do it on our own, right? It's going to require us to partner with private development so that as they come in, they are contributing to the park system in this sort of way.
Is the pocket park, how big? An acre, 2 acres?
The details are all there in the zoning conditions. There's a minimum square footage they have to meet and a menu of amenities.
So I know in Cary, they have pocket parks, and, my grandchildren refer to the green park or the red park or the blue park because of the color of the playground equipment.
Yeah.
And they're all located within 10
The great
minutes.
thing is TJ and Emma and Lauren, they look at what are the things we want, like basic to provide, and we say you have to provide 1 or 3 of these within here. So they have a menu of things they're required to build.
In addition, this one, they're providing about 20 acres that are being set aside as a public active recreation area. We have the option as the city to have that dedicated to us for us to manage as a public park space if we so choose. Otherwise, it'll be managed by the private development, but it's still publicly accessible. That also includes a set aside of space for a potential landing area for a bridge across the Neuse River if that were to happen in the future.
How much land is required for the landing area?
I'd have to look specifically at
Just ballpark.
the plan development. I think it was like a 3-acre area specifically for the bridge, and then there's a range for the active recreation area. But they'll all be in the same location. The idea is we would, if we can come to an agreement, maybe a cost share agreement, something like that, to get the bridge built, this could then be developed into kind of a trailhead park right there. So they would be required to provide public parking, and again, disc golf course, kayak launch, that type of amenity. Which again, if there's a bridge connecting to the Greenway, it makes sense for us to manage that as a public park.
So the bridge may or may not be built.
That's right. There's a lot of back and forth during the rezoning hearing process. Ultimately, the city and the developer weren't able to reach an agreement, but negotiations are ongoing.
Yeah, I was going to say we're still talking to them, hoping to push the bridge forward.
Yep. Which brings me to a quick closeout here on development agreements. So there's a little nuance here. These are slightly different than rezoning conditions. Again, everything that I've reviewed with you so far required absolutely no contribution on behalf of the city, no financial contribution. They were all conditions for what needed to be provided by the development itself. Development agreements are a shared contract between a city and the city and a property owner where we have shared obligations, right? So this would be a cost share agreement. This is what you typically think of as a public-private partnership. Maybe there's some adjacent vacant city-owned land that a private developer can activate with some sort of investment to create a park space that's going to serve their development as well as the city as a whole. There's a lot of ways these kind of development agreements might get used to build sewer infrastructure and transportation infrastructure that wouldn't otherwise be required by code. So there are a couple of development agreements I wanted to highlight. One is out at Forestville Road Park. So again, this is east of the Neuse River, east of 540. Vacant land that we manage right now, intended as a future park space. Rezoning case adjacent to the park. Similar conversation we have with a lot of these cases, right? We have no way of serving this new development. Right now you can see it's mostly agricultural or otherwise undeveloped land out here. And so if you're proposing a new townhome community, how are they going to get access to a park? The developer ultimately offered a $600,000 donation toward the future planning and development of Forestville. That donation has since been received. We're looking to kick off a master plan for that later this year. So otherwise we would not have had funding to plan or develop Forestville Road Park property. This map here shows the number of other rezoning cases in the vicinity. Again, if we jump back to that satellite, there's not much going on there now, but within a few years, there's going to be over 1,000 new homes built in this area. And again, they'll have Forestville Road Park to visit and wouldn't otherwise absent a zoning condition like this one. Excuse me, a development agreement like this one.
Are there zoning conditions being discussed for these other parcels, or have they already been rezoned?
These have already been approved. Yep. There was a connection condition for Z3922 right there. So they were required to, build a park access connection for us. And another agreement that we had through a plan development master plan review process was for the Crabtree Creek Greenway Bridge as part of the Hodges Street multifamily master plan. Again, this bridge was something that was called for in the Midtown area plan. You can see here. This was, again, approved by City Council for us to move forward with the agreement. That was all executed in October, and wanted to provide a status update to you all tonight while we were talking about these kinds of partnerships. And again, this one is a cost share agreement where the city is paying toward the infrastructure, the developer is contributing toward that cost as well, in addition to providing all the in-kind services for designing and permitting and ultimately bidding out the project for construction. So we actually just received last week the first set of preliminary design drawings for this project. We'd like to take it to the Greenway Committee to review with you all. They're proposing some kind of public park amenities along with the bridge itself and the tie-in to the parking area. So it'll create a little, again, kind of pocket park trailhead destination on the Greenway network. We'd love to get you all involved in reviewing those preliminary plans. And the contract has us set for 90% design review this fall, and as long as all goes well and we stay on budget, we would be bidding out the contract next spring.
And this is the one that this board took a stand against last May. I was out on Hodges Street the other day, and I measured that between the edge of the northern edge of Hodges Street and the creek bank is not even 12 feet. How do you build, I mean, are we moving, is the proposal to move Hodges Street? There's not, it's between 9 and 10 feet there, where if, it directly, I've got the pictures, directly in line with the industrial, with the thing that was added there, Industrial Drive. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look.
You need to measure, because I don't see how you could have a landing without substantial damage.
Well, we can review the design drawings and the survey information at Greenway Committee in April.
Yeah, I found where the closest police station was on Front Street because I found somebody's wallet.
Okay.
On Hodges Street.
You never know what you're going to find.
No, you don't, but I was measuring.
So with
Excuse me.
that, I will, absolutely.
I was just going to add the illustration you gave of Hodges Street and the, I think it was bank project.
Homewood Banks, yeah.
Yeah. As an example of situation where the Greenway is on one side of the creek and the development is occurring on the other side. Yep. And one of my concerns, and maybe we can talk about this later, is some kind of buffer on that far side of the creek. So when you look at the creek, you don't see a building or something hard against the edge, except possibly in the example you gave near South Saunders Street, where they've got they've got a very activated park section there.
Yeah, that would be a little bit more integrated. Yeah, it really is a case-by-case basis, right? How we approach the design of these spaces, what we ask for, because there is such a thing as too much. Connectivity is great, but we do always have to balance that with the natural resource impacts, the aesthetic value of being out in the woods on a trail. We try to be as sensitive to that as we can, and we hope to get you all more involved moving forward in these sorts of processes so that you can help us, figure out the best approach.
Just keep getting those locations first, and then we'll worry about the refinements.
That's a deal. So, in summary, the combined value of the products that I presented today is over $15 million, and we think about the number of new residential units that we're serving through these projects, over 10,000. That's to say nothing for the folks who already lived in these areas. And again, this was all stuff that we accomplished with no contributions financially from the city. I think the investment that we've made in getting ourselves embedded in this process, thinking about how the park system functions more holistically as part of the city of Raleigh in general, and thinking about parks and greenways as essential infrastructure has really started to pay dividends, and we're looking forward to more in the future.
Thank you. Questions? I do have a very specific question related to the text change that you mentioned. Can you describe for us more of what would happen there? And is it in response to the Greenway Master Plan, which recommended changes to the UDO and to the comp plan?
Yes. So the text change you're referring to is part of the Clean Transportation Ordinance. So this text change includes a number of provisions, limits where drive-throughs can be built in the city to significantly cut down on the number of new drive-throughs that would be constructed. Provides requirements so that if a new neighborhood is being built that has cul-de-sacs as part of the street network design, they'll be required to extend a pedestrian way coming off the end of the cul-de-sac, so they wouldn't be necessarily required to make those vehicular connections, but bikes and pedestrians wouldn't be stuck in a dead-end street as part of new subdivisions, and requires that any new development adjacent to an existing greenway trail needs to build those connections. And so the way the text change is worded currently in its present form, which again, it's going to be going through that planning commission process, is a new connection needs to be provided every 600 feet, every 600 linear feet along a greenway trail. So if we have, a very large subdivision come through, they'd be required to make multiple connections so that everybody in the neighborhood can walk to the trail. Tell me your question again, if I
think, Madam Chair, the basis for this recommendation is there an adopted plan? They can point to it and say, this is in the Greenway plan, but this ordinance is out in front of us. So it's going to help us knock down some work that we were planning on doing.
Okay, that I was trying to understand because I knew that staff had not had the opportunity to work on all of that because they've been so busy with capital projects, et cetera.
So we're piggybacking onto an initiative, and they can point to it and say, you have an adopted plan, and this supports this ordinance change.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The full suite of comprehensive plan amendments and text changes that we want to bring forward as part of the Greenway Master Plan is more comprehensive. It's also more complicated and takes some time. There's a lot of legal issues involved with exactions and how far we can really go. So when we were working on the Clean Transportation Ordinance, we saw it as an opportunity to at least get these greenway connections, that requirement codified. So that was kind of the low-hanging fruit from the Greenway Master Plan, and this is how we got it done.
Sounds like that should go to the Greenway Committee too.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Not a question. I just appreciate the enthusiasm of your group.
Yes.
Yeah, they're the best. Yes. They're the best. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. And I'm going to recommend that we take a 10-minute break, and so everybody can get up and stretch their legs, and because we still have more to do.
As we go to break, can I make one comment? I would be very appreciative if we could see these reviews as they're going through the process of being reviewed. Not that we need to take a critical analysis, but when we watch the zoning cases proceed through the process of evaluation and planning commission and council, as a member of this board, it would be valuable to me personally to know that they've been reviewed and looked at, and it would give me confidence in knowing they've been seen. So I'd be very appreciative if we could do that in the future.
They started last month, so you get a link to all of our staff reports and the zoning case, and it won't just have our report, but it'll have stormwater. It'll have every department.
I'd like to see them here, if we can.
So I would just say this is, you can channel it to us, but your information needs to go to the Planning Commission because we don't have bearing on it. You know what I mean? The engagement is through the Planning Commission, and that's where we've been directed to share.
And I think it is a concern generally of this board and of how we know, what is happening on so that we can inform our elected officials, et cetera. And so this is, I think we're taking steps. And I don't think we're to the full place we need to be, and this report and adding it to the director's report are progress. Staff's been doing this since 2018. The only time that the Parks Board ever found out about this was after something was approved by council a year ago. So we're making progress. I think we need a little time of learning about these things, and then maybe at some point we need to learn about them earlier or something. But I think we have to take steps, not baby steps, but take concrete steps going forward, and then evaluate if the steps are working or not.
Right.
And so I'm not in disagreement with you,
Yeah,
but I don't want to start deluging us with more information than we can handle and asking staff to do something.
You have to go through the planning commission or the planning staff, not the Parks
Yes,
and
but if it
Recreation.
affects a park and we don't know about it, we can't go to the planning commission.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
that's the place where we have been, and that's what we're trying to change.
Thank you.
But we'll take a 10-minute break starting now.
as Beverly's trying to move this along, but I was sitting back as Stephen asked me to do this presentation tonight. December 20th, 2016 was the first time I had an engagement on this project, and that was when Rob Autry came to meet with then Director Diane Sauer to talk about the potential to create a little project out in Northwest Raleigh. It's gone through several iterations. And so if you think I had to kind of squeeze the font to get into where we've been, as I added in our last action that we just had most recently at City Council. And I was like, it seems to happen every 2 years we kind of do something on this. So we met that first time in 2016 in December. 2018, we executed our first lease. That was actually a 60-year, and it has renewal periods that could go up to 100 years, but the base lease is about essentially 60 years. To create at that time, I'm going to show you some pictures of 50-year or a 50-court complex, and it had a healthcare provider and all kinds of other neat things. What then happened was the pandemic. So we executed that first lease, which really had some pretty, I'll say, simple elements to it. When we came back in 20 and we executed an amendment to basically extend the term, because when we did the first lease, it said you had to hit these certain benchmarks in order for the project to continue. Pandemic, as we know, essentially shut everything down. What was really bad, I mean, in simple terms, the pandemic had some really catastrophic impacts on a lot of things. For this project, it was actually pretty positive. Because it gave opportunity to step back and think about this project holistically and its impact on the community. Over that period of time, they recognized it wasn't so much just about tennis, but it was really about health and wellness. It was about community activation. It was about providing something that the city really doesn't have. And in that, they also changed some of their partnership philosophies that they worked with. And as I mentioned, a healthcare provider, and as we went through that, a healthcare partner was no longer part of the project as we went through. That resulted in 2022, where we came back and executed amendment number 2, which really turned the whole space into a park. And in the original iterations, it actually had a designated little park in it. It actually had what we called the family zone, which was a designated space, and the rest of it had a very club-like mentality. It was a membership-based program where you would go in and use that. And they worked through that. We had the lease that came through. And then towards the end of 2023, we had conversations. Stephen stepped in and started working with them and with city leadership and city council, and they earmarked $10 million in capital reserve to go to the project. Now, through this, the original project, and I like to mess with Rob, who's the partner, he came to us and said, I have a $10 million project idea. It's now over a $100 million project idea. And there was also opportunities in there where he was looking to get some interlocal, so what most people know is the Hotel Motel Fund, to be able to pay for that. And as we know, there's been lots of conversations over the years with that. So he did come back to the city and ask if there was opportunity for the city to make an investment in the project, which the city did agree to over about the past 3-4 months, that it identified with the mayor and city council earmarking that $10 million. January of 24, they approved the staff to move forward with a public hearing and to develop an economic development agreement. And then just this recently, February 20th, that public hearing was successful, and they authorized the city manager to execute an economic development agreement in the amount of $10 million that is blocked by the little blocks in there. So that's the history of it. But just for a little fun, this was the first drawing. And I really want to pull out my inner TJ and start using different colors here, but I just know that's probably not a great idea because I won't know how to clear it. But what I do want to draw attention to is there was a total of 8 pickleball courts, and they're really, really hard to see, but they're off the parking lot. But there was 50 tennis courts that were actually in the original lease identified that there had to be X number of racket sports that were available to the public and X number that were then available from a membership perspective. You'll see over on the left-hand side, there was a big old hunk of grass in there. And that was, they were working at that time potentially with a partner who has a lot to do with soccer. And were they going to use that for some open space soccer to be out there? The thing, what they were looking at from a sport perspective, tennis and soccer played well together in terms of muscle development, strength and training, and those two sports played well together. Right above that, you'll see a little playground. That was the park that they were going to make an initial $500,000 contribution to build that park. And Steve and I both left because even back in 2018, that wasn't going to build much of a park. Might have gotten us some design and a swing set. So this was the first iteration. It had a healthcare partner as I brought into. It had, instead of a restaurant, it had what they were called basically a lunch counter. And it had a lot of like community center elements to it. They wanted to put a gymnasium in it. They wanted to have a fitness center. So this was the original iteration. Thought you'd find that kind of fun to look at as we go through some pictures. The original public benefits, I just talked about a lot of them, but it was a really positive project. For years, in the northern area of town, we've had a lack of tennis courts, believe it or not. Lake Lynn is the closest facility, and actually in the master plan has a phase 2 of tennis courts. We needed some help to relieve pressure of pickleball. We still need help to relieve pressure from pickleball. That was going to create those spaces to do it. It was not going to be on the taxpayer dollar. I guess that's a big point for those of you who are new to it. None of this was going to be constructed with City of Raleigh dollars. The partner was going to pay for all of this when the original project came out. In return, the public would have access to these. We built in, which still maintains in today, a $275,000 annual rent payment with a 3% annual escalator. Over the term, the initial, what they call the initial term of the agreement, that's about a $30 to $32 million just in lease coming back to the city. This was positive for a piece of property that essentially was originally identified for a remote operations facility in Northwest Raleigh. So this was really positive. We worked on scholarships because it was going to be elite level tennis, scholarships for players will play out of the City of Raleigh program. When they get to that next level, this was a place for them to go to play at an academy level. If you saw in that original picture up there was clay tennis courts, which is very uncommon, especially in the recreation industry, very uncommon even in this part of North Carolina. And then 5 youth employment opportunities. What we always wanted to do, and what you'll see, and Stephen really escalated this through the most recent negotiations, was this was a great opportunity for youth and how they could get involved in the business, but also they could get involved in the sport of it. And we've really accelerated that through. So this was really some of the key original public benefits that were negotiated in those original leases. 2022, we came back with this plan. And as you can see, it's quite a bit different. What I also find pretty interesting is how better we've got at designing and providing visual images on some design. But you'll see this is much, much different. They started creating what they called villages. So you up there this is where I really should do my TJ and use the colored circles, but I'll just say to the upper right hand is what they call the padel, which is one of the fastest growing sports in Europe. I like to call it's kind of a combination of squash and a cage. But it's very active in Spain. In those areas right below that, you have the 25 now pickleball courts. That was one of the things that they learned during the pandemic. Pickleball is not just a trend, it's a thriving sport that millions of people are picking up every year. So that was one of the things we were also hearing is, what's the magic number to start hosting economic impact events? So that number went from 8 to 25. And then you'll see scattered throughout different levels of tennis courts. They have some fun things in there called beach tennis. And also at this time, they didn't identify it, but their partnership relationship started to change. And through 2022 and as where we are now, which is this, they've involved relationships that include Wilson and named celebrity chefs and different relationships that took this from it can't be quaint, but it was a pretty simple, we want to build a lot of tennis courts, to now it has the potential to be a thriving economic generator in Raleigh. And I always start out with, this is super cool, and now it's gone to really cool, because it's something that just does not exist. In fact, this would be the largest campus of its size in the country to be able to do this. So what you'll see is a whole kind of bunch of neat things here. To the left, they still have those clay tennis courts, maintenance facility, you still have the villages. All of this is publicly accessible. So that's the big shift that happened over time, is it went from a membership based in most of it to everything being accessible. The part for us all the way up in the north, in kind of that top right-hand corner, is we eventually have the Greenway Trail that's going to come down there. So this will be an access point into the Greenway Trail that will come through there, as there's opportunities for other events that happen in there. So as you can see, it's been quite the change over the years of what we can do. So yes, do you want me to go back?
You're going to do solar panels on all those buildings?
Yes, not all of them, but they're using them as case examples. They're also going to design to LEED Silver standards. They're looking to become a B corporation. So,
thank you. Yeah, this is why it's a tag team. The other part of it is, Beverly, that we have to work through, it's in the airport overlay district. So that brings all kinds of other neat little challenges to it as we think about lighting and reflection and making sure we don't impact any of the pathways for the airplanes coming in and out of RDU. Interesting, just a little quick tangent. That was a big driver when we started this project, was proximity to major thoroughfares. So when Rob came, he's like, so I need you to find a needle in a haystack. I need it to be about 40 plus acres. I need it to be close to a major thoroughfares, and I need it to be close to the airport. And we were like, we actually might have something. So, trying to give the history, I forget some of the main components that came through it. But as you look at the bottom here, it will have a full-scale restaurant that will have where people can come, and really it does become a destination. So if you think about even some of the stuff that's happening with pickleball now, you're seeing more lounges being connected to what this sport, they call it sportstainment. That is really what swing is going to become. They will have a high-level tennis academy where they are bringing in an instructional academy from overseas. The key to that, and as they selected that, was making sure that the mission has always aligned health and wellness, opportunities for youth and opportunities for folks. It's not just about making money. To that B Corp piece that Stephen talked about, it's how do we make sure that our mission aligns to give back to the community and how this works through. So as you can see, they got beach tennis in here, lots of walking trails. That's one of the other fundamental changes. Originally, it was going to be a non-paved walking trail. That was actually one of the original negotiating points. So now the community can come. For those in Northwest Raleigh, we don't have a tremendous amount of park to be able to do things. As TJ just talked about, looking at that level of service model and how we can get access, the walking paths through here give those opportunities. The opportunity to come and just be able to participate in sport exists with this new design. And as you look at it, don't get me wrong, there's going to be opportunities for some very high-level things with some of the partners that they're working for, but it will still be a place where everybody can go. Some of their partners will involve people like Drive Shack and Topgolf, where you can go and have fun, have community, but you don't have to be an expert. So I don't want you to think that this is some high-level academy that I can only go at if I'm an expert in my sport. Nope, get your friends together on a Friday night, go out, great lawn, we'll have movies, those type of activities. All right? So how does that change? Well, here's a little bit of more what I've shared with you. Access to public restrooms, more walking trails, more access to the great lawn. Wooded trails. As you saw in that last rendering, there's a blue line stream that comes through there, which is a development challenge, but it's also an environmental opportunity, because that back half of the park to develop, I'm going to go back as you're all reading, this back half of the park up in here, you'd have to build a bridge in order to get emergency vehicles over. It gets really expensive. So let's put that work up front. That back will stay very natural as you're seeing it in those pictures, which is a great opportunity for the park. And it also works with the topography of the land. There's a little gentle roll that takes you down to that wood line. Back to these, you'll have natural playscape areas, 3 beach volleyball. Those 5 scholarships are now 15. And this is actually being part of the business that they will look out there. How do they connect with the chef? How do they connect with Wilson? How do they connect with the tennis academy? We will still have 5 opportunities for youth to participate in the high performance academy. Youth employment opportunities, as you'll see, 300 hours of employment, offer STEM, culinary business. It's not just coming out and being the guys who are going to help drag the clay courts or blow the trails. It's actually get involved in the delivery of the operations and how that works on a daily basis. And then we have these other ones. How does the city still benefit? Offer 1 community events, allowing City of Raleigh to do things. They're going to donate. So you get the Youth Council. London and Paris come to you every month to talk about what Raleigh Youth Council. Stephen said, great, I'd like some money for that to help us out there. So they're going to make a donation annually to support the Raleigh Youth Council, and then the opportunities for us to be able to have activities out there. And the rent still has not changed. But there's more. So aside from just those public benefits, these are some of the economic indicators that they have coming in. As we mentioned, that $10 million project is now a $125 million project, as you look at the capital investment and infrastructure to make these things happen. I like the economic impact down there in the corner, but if you think about that annual hotel motel, that food and beverage spending loaded at $13 million, and then the operating revenue. So the part where we were really started out with, let's build a lot of tennis courts, has now become a real economic driver in this part of town to be able to influence. And the other part that I think is great is it still meets some of those core missions, health and wellness. Let's get out and get active. Let's invest in our youth. It provides an access to a Parks and Recreation amenity that doesn't currently exist in that area of town, and now it's giving back in a real financial way as well, to be able to impact the city of Raleigh. So here's where we are. Literally, staff are finalizing the terms of the economic development agreement and lease amendment. There was lots of chatter today between the four of us. Does that look good? Does it look good? Does it look good? Because we're trying to get that nailed down to get the lease amendment. We do have a projected groundbreaking in the summer of 2024. I'll be so bold as to say we're trying to get that scheduled before City Council goes on break. Just saying we're trying, so knowing that this is on video. And then they're anticipating about an 18-month construction period with a target of April 2026 for an opening of the project. And with that, I will field, or Steve and I will both field any questions you may have.
I would note this is about a half a mile from Aaronsbrook, and we do have a Greenway corridor. So the hope is that you could go here and do something and walk or ride your bike over to Aaronsbrook. So. Yeah,
Stephen, I'm glad you brought that up because it's always fun when we could bring TJ back in the conversation. So actually even cooler that we don't know is we've got Aaronsbrook. We negotiated an easement with First Tee, who's building a tennis area, or not tennis, golf.
Yep.
To bring us over to that Greenway Trail to bring us down. Sycamore Creek Greenway Trail. I just didn't want to misquote earlier. So thanks, Stephen, great reminder. To ultimately have a linear connection between those elements as well.
Very good. Any questions? I'm amazed at an 18-month construction schedule. We maybe can take lessons from that. That's amazing. They must already have their permits.
It's a lot of paved surfaces.
I'm sorry.
I just going to say it's a lot of paved surfaces. I just think, how do we cool that down? How do we keep that area from being hotter and hotter? I don't know. And then, yeah.
All right. Anything else? Thank you, Ken Hissler, for that update and report. And it is quite an exciting, I really do think it's not just a benefit for Northwest Raleigh, it is a benefit for the city. And that's important. Work plan review. I'm just going to give you all the real abbreviated issue. I've asked Jeff Havener to chair that ad hoc committee again. If you have work plan items you want to see discussed by that committee, email Jeff, and he'll be setting, and if you're interested in working with him on that, let him know. And these dates, while they are goals, the real key is that the has to be approved by this board at the June meeting. So that's the takeaway of that. So that'll be it. Approval of minutes. I guess that's what we need to do, is we need to approve. We have 3 sets of minutes. The Parks Department has contracted with an outside entity to now have more timely minutes, because in the past, if you missed a meeting, you couldn't, although you can always watch us on YouTube if you want. But anyway, may I have a motion to approve the, I can't tell what date they are from this. Giovanna, you want to help me? September 15th, 2022.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Well, how many of us were here? All in favor? May I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes.
A second? I second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
The other next ones are?
January 18th, 2024.
See, now we're getting there. January 18th, 2024. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All right. Second, motion made and seconded. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
And the next one would be February.
February 15th.
February 15th. May I have a motion to approve? All right, and any conversation, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Minutes,
Who moved that for approval? Was
Doug.
Who seconded?
Jeff. All right. Director's report. We got a, thank you very much, Giovanna, for sending an email telling us that the director's report is available because otherwise people have looked at it earlier. And
Yeah, and the reason why we load it later because the council
more
meeting
current.
Yeah, it's the most current. Thank you. I will keep it abbreviated. It's a great report, a lot of amazing work. You all remember the rowing community coming in and voicing some concerns. Credit to Ken and his team. We've reconciled most of those. But also, we are a long-term partner with the ACC. So we will hold the ACC rowing championships at Lake Wheeler. And we'll be able to capitalize on the infrastructure that is being invested in by the ACC all year long for our rowing community, which is great. At the February 20th council meeting, the city council did not recommend proceeding with the Mine Creek Trail as recommended by this board, and has recommended that staff build the two bridges, the alternative option that the board did not pursue.
And can we put that on the agenda for either the April or May Greenway Committee for an update on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Adam gave me an update that said we've narrowed in on the scope, what the revised scope would look like. So I'll have them add that to your Greenway agenda.
Sorry, Stephen, did they go with the one that the community wanted of replacing the bridge? Okay.
Yep. Bridges.
Bridges.
Yep. And I'll skip through some of these. We had a large contract awarded on Tuesday in which we are going to be replacing and installing cameras from across the park system for security purposes. And we have that on here because it's a $500,000 contract. Very important investment in the park system. The council did appropriate $7,500 to Skate Raleigh to pay for their porta-johns.
7,500 or 5,000?
This is incorrect. The mayor actually changed the amount at the table, but this was what was in the agenda, so it's actually $7,500. It's both porta-johns and to wrap the fence in and around the skate park. There is a link to volunteer opportunities in your packet. We are off and going with our first community garden at Barwell Road, which is really exciting. Kudos to Charles and Ken for getting that going. We had a really amazing training with 100 people in attendance looking at how we can help youth build skills needed to manage stress and anxiety. And we partnered with Wake County and Wake Med on that, so that was a really successful program. Wake County Senior Games have kicked off. We had a job fair recently. Some really cool art exhibit going in at Tarboro Road. If you haven't seen the Raleigh Stories Community Engagement Public Art Project, there's a young artist that goes and will sit down with you. You tell them about your story of living in Raleigh, and they draw you, and they memorialize your story, and then you get a copy of your portrait. So they've been doing it for, I think, about 18 months, maybe 2 years, and it's individuals from all across Raleigh. It's really, really great. The 2024 Medal of Arts program is underway. A baseball exhibit is coming to the City Museum. Kind of timing's pretty good, seeing that Raleigh is trying to get an MLB team. Dreamville is coming to Dix Park. That will be the first weekend. Actually, technically, I guess, yeah, it's the first weekend in April. Had some really great highlights of our gardeners, and one of your fellow board members was highlighted in Triangle Gardener magazine, Kate Dixon, who is not here, but I was going to say kudos, she's one of our best volunteers. And one of our gardeners wrote a really great story in Walter magazine on Joslyn Garden and the story of the Joslyn family. And then there are a series of zoning cases which are highlighted at the back. Remember, you might have paper copies, but all these are hyperlinks. And this is a good example how TJ has framed it. He has the zoning case, the link to it, the staff member in the planning department that you can talk directly to if we can't answer your questions, and what we have proposed to the developer, whether it be a Greenway connection. We're really pushing to get developments to look at public art as a part of their development, not just Greenway and trail space, because we have the arts within our portfolio. So there are 3 different cases listed in your agenda.
Great. All right. We are going to move to the standing committees. Parks Committee did not meet this month. Brett Fletcher, a volunteer. April is not here, but have you spoken with your awardee is the question. And if you haven't, get on it. And I think there was still one awardee that needed to be adopted. So if you'll take a look at the document, she sent that out via email earlier this week. And remember, you've got the Fred Fletcher Awards evening on your calendars for May 14th. I cannot tell you how many other things have come up for that night. Each time I look, nope, can't do it. But please get your interviews happening soon. Greenways Committee, Jeff was not there, so I chaired that, and we saw I have to give big kudos to Tool Design for their redoing the map of the Greenway. They were very interested in our comments, and it was a very, very well-conducted process where we drew maps, et cetera. And I think they're going to have a new map by June or July. I think it's going to be this summer. So that's very cool. They're working very fast on that. SWAT.
Okay, well, we met and once again had quite a number of citizens that came that are interested in what we talk about. And I think I'm getting tired and I'm blanking on what all we talked about.
It's totally understandable at this hour.
It was lively. Engaged. Charles, is there anything that we should mention? We got Earth Day coming up.
Yeah, that's all right. You don't have to come up. We are at the tail end. That's all right. We'll just move on. Committee liaison, I think we're going to just skip Arts Commission. We're going to skip BPAC. Although they did have an interesting meeting, Historic Cemeteries Advisory Board, Dick's Leadership. I will say that the Dick's Leadership is meeting this coming Tuesday. The meetings are open to the public, and it is about the Rocky Branch plans for the waterway. So so any of you who want to come to that, you're always welcome. Environmental Awards Jury is there. I think that was Greg. Hunt, did you do that?
Yeah, so we decided on the awards. They're still secret, but come to Earth Day on April 19th. I think the ceremony starts at 5 p.m.
So is that in conjunction with the Parks Earth Day, or they do their own? Because in the past, they've always done their own party.
So starting last year, they announced them at Earth Day at Dix Park. That's kind of a new, bigger city versus EAB doing something and Parks doing something.
Yeah.
And we are invited, but we're not participating in the award ceremony. So,
Good. Thank you
Beverly, there's also a message out giving all the associated closures for Dix Park during the Dreamville time period. If you don't have it, one of us can get it for you if you want.
Yeah, and it's online. Yeah, Dix Park will be closed from basically the 31st of March till about the 10th of April in various stages to get ready for Dreamville. Parks, so environmental awards, historic resources, we're going to breeze through that unless there's something compelling.
You mentioned City of Raleigh Museum baseball exhibit opening. I had that. Lada's grand opening is April the 20th. And there's a new RFQ going out for the food vendor at
Moore Square. Oh, good.
We had 20 interested parties come on Monday.
That's awesome. And at the request of the staff who do the community and parks, community engagement, I'm just going to roll that into my chair thing. The Neuse River Park survey was the largest ever with more than 2,000 responses. Wow. So they were pretty busy. I do have one thing as chair. I know that the fence has been rebuilt along Allegheny and Crabtree Creek. I would like a report back to this Greenway board, to this Parks and Recreation board on the dollars that we received, if any, from the violator of the Greenway easement.
I asked on Tuesday. Giovanna was in the meeting with our attorney. We have a new attorney, and he's getting up to speed. He's like, let me ask my... Yeah.
It is no longer private negotiation, and if we need to do a FOIA, we can do that.
Yeah, he wasn't sure. He said it could have been part of the settlement, but he told Giovanna and I he would get back to us.
Okay, good. I'm
I
glad
knew the question was coming. I was
You
like,
knew it. I'm expecting hundreds of thousands of dollars since it was 2 years to get it fixed. And that is the end of the meeting, unless anybody else has any other comments. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your patience, your interest.